Part of this is actually a little bit of a course that I created. So I've been with Keller for 15 years. I went through my bio a little bit yesterday, but I've kind of had a little bit of a unique ability to be around Gary Keller quite a bit. So part of that is, you know, like I mentioned yesterday, I'm the co-founder, CEO right now of my real estate team. My partner Clay Winder and I started a real estate team 15 years ago. We finished right at 360 transactions, 140 million volume this year. And so part of that is there's this mastermind group that you can get into. They have a gold level and they have a platinum level. They have individuals and rainmakers that you can get into. I don't know the individuals' exact GCI requirements, but the team rainmakers, I think you can get into the gold at like 1.5 million GCI in 12 months. But the platinum is you get 2 million GCI. And like, there's a lot of people producing at a high level, so I don't even worry they're going to bump it up and I might be on the threshold to get kicked out. So hopefully we stay on that 3 million mark. But my partner Clay and I, we've been in that platinum mastermind group with Gary Keller. So pre-COVID, it was actually a quarterly mastermind. We fly down to Austin, Texas. It was just the top 150-ish rainmakers that just sit in the room with Gary. And he calls it mastermind, but it's basically just Gary telling us a bunch of smart stuff. Every once in a while we got to ask questions, but you got to think about all the cool people in our company, you know, Kristen Cole and Cody Gibson and Ben Kinney and Adam Bergerother and Tim Heil and all those, you know, great gals and guys that just are crushing it. Bob Lucido, you know, he was #1 team a couple of years ago. So it's just a really powerful room to be in, but just even how Gary communicates to us, what he always shows up with value for us. Clearly, I was a team leader in an OP. I was a team leader for 10 years, OP currently for the last 2 years. And Gary kind of neglects the team leaders, I think. You don't see a lot of Gary Keller in the leadership meetings. He really is super agent focused. But since I've been the regional director the last 2 years, and he kind of stepped back in the CEO role and we've kind of been rearranging some of the leadership roles, I've seen a lot of Gary in the last 2 years. So even the first month because Gary's a big deal in our company, right? Outside, nobody knows who Gary is, but inside our company, like, he is a big deal. And so the very first regional director meeting I went to, it was before COVID, so I flew down in like January, and we had the whole RD meeting, and it's just all the 32 RDs and maybe their ROMs, their operations managers, whatever, but I guess they started doing like a night activity, just to get the RDs like hanging out more and get to know each other. And we went to Gary's movie theater, just took us to his movie theater, and he owns the Alamo Draft House movie chain down in Texas. And it was one of those last movie chains that you actually order your food and eat like in the theater, you know, and the server comes in and out and you get drinks. And just the way that we were all shuffled in, I ended up just not purposely, but coincidentally sitting right next to Gary Keller the whole movie. And I was like, oh, this is awkward. But anyway, so it's just been cool to be around him because he is just a huge mentor of mine, a superstar. So I've learned a lot from him, specifically the last 10 years. So that's why I call this course like my top 10 empire building tips that I've learned from him. And part of it's not just like who Gary is, but it's the growth that I've seen him develop and just continue to stay ahead of everybody in the last 10 years. It's been important. So we're going to go through that. The last handful of these are more investor focused, so I won't even time out and do a little investment activity with you guys. Who in here owns rental properties? Who in here has a goal to own some rental properties in 2022 or more of them, I guess? Okay, well, we're going to go through a few examples of why you need a little bit more urgency. I have a dream that I'm pushing and forcing our day camp units to buy more and more rental properties because it's meant so much for me in my life. And then I also, at the end, I actually want to go through one of the things that Gary went through with us this last mastermind about a month ago, that he basically asked himself 10 questions at the end of every year. It kind of just helps him regain perspective of where he's at and what he wants to accomplish the next 12 months. So this is perfect timing that we're right on the threshold of the end of the year. Before I jump into all this, I want to chat with you guys about a couple of housekeeping items. Okay, me trying to communicate out to our agents, all the cool stuff that's coming up. One of the things that's been crazy the last 3-4 years is just all the change, all the stuff that Keller was working on. For the most part, a lot of stuff that they were working on we thought was going to come out a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago. But really, 2022 is execution mode. I'm in a lot of corporate meetings, and literally almost every 3 weeks we are launching something cool. And I'm sure Robert's communicating some of them to you, but We just launched mobile command. Does anybody have mobile command on your phone? That's slick and sweet right now. Be able to tap into your command. We just launched a luxury division several months ago in the state of Utah. So for our agents that qualify to meet certain production requirements, they qualify to be the luxury division. So we've been having a bunch of cool luxury events. They just launched their sports and entertainment division. We've got a bunch of our Keller Williams agents that really cater their business to sports athletes and sports agents and celebrities. And so even some of our agents that want to kind of tap into that network, they actually created an official division for it. They're reinventing our commercial division right now that I'm super excited about. I think that's been a need that we've had to do. But they also just launched their relocation division. So we've never been in the business, Keller Williams, of actually corporately helping our agents with gain relocation business. But again, we just have to be doing everything right now. So that's something that they did, which also that is partnered up with like, institutional investors. I think that's going to be a big piece of business over the next 5 to 10 years. I can't remember what the stat was, but it's crazy what percent of listed properties or even pre-listed properties are being bought by hedge funds and capital groups and institutional investors. I think it's one out of 10 or 1 out of 8 homes across the country that's getting bought up by institutional investors. So no doubt when they change their parameters and no one's trying to load in them, I think having a deal or an agreement with some of those companies is going to be as cool as REO was back in the day, So that's great, but a handful of upcoming events. Number one is we've got a new VP of Keller Williams University, a VP of Learning. If anybody knows who James Shaw is, he is just a stud, such an upgrade on getting things organized. And one of the disconnects that we've always had is what training's going on at KWRI, what training's going on at the region, what training's going on in the market center, and how it's all, hearing it and getting different emails and stuff. So one of their big goals is to actually coordinate all 3 levels of those training calendars way more efficiently and almost create monthly themes that they're launching a few things at the corporate level. The region has some recommended training, and the market center has recommended training. January is really the first launch of some collaboration on that. So we're really trying to do 1 or maybe 2 trainings per month that's hosted at KWRI, and then we'll collaborate with regional stuff. And then a lot of you'll see a lot of synonymous, training schedules showing up on your market center. But one of the first ones, if you go to kwutah.com, you can see us. We're going to always make sure we're marketing there. Jay Papazan is doing a really cool course on January 20th. So if there's one thing in January to pay attention from corporate, is Jay Papazan, who's a rock star. He helped write the MREA, he helped write the one thing. He's been basically the right-hand person to Gary. So that's one. If you guys have been to this before, but we're doing our official KW Utah Awards Gala on January 28th. So we're trying to get that done before family reunion. So that is a Friday evening. It'll be downtown Salt Lake. We rented out one of those fancy Marriotts, so we'll have a big room. We'll go through each market center's awards. We'll go through regional awards, but it's right downtown too. So if you want to grab dinner or go out for drinks or whatever afterwards, that's a cool venue. So, and then again, the biggest thing that I could recommend to you, because of so much stuff going on, I really think this family reunion is going to be the most powerful, impactful family reunion that you could attend in the last 15 years. I've been to every single one of them in the last 12, 13 years, and I'm super pumped for this one. If you haven't heard it, it's in Orlando. The dates are February 19th through the 22nd. We have about 1,700 KW agents in the state, and I honestly think we'll probably get 500 or 600 of our top 20, 30% of them down there. So it is big, and I just usually try to get people to register before they don't procrastinate, and then it's sold out. That's when no doubt will sell out. So. Part of it is just there's so much stuff going on that if you're not paying attention, it's really going to probably cost you some money in your business by not paying attention to a lot of tools. We also just launched in the state of Utah, Keller offers the concierge programs. We're probably maybe a monthish away from Washington County to be able to service it because we've got to get a few more general contractors in there. But the concierge program, you guys know what Keller offers division is? So you probably heard of like Zillow's iBuying program that they stopped because they were very good at it, but like Open Door and Knock and some of these other companies. Keller Offers has been the product that we've had that's been competing against that in a lot of the major markets out there, that if a seller wants a cash offer, Keller offer will actually buy the home, and then they'll list it with a Keller Williams agent. So it's basically trying to have a product that doesn't cut out KW agents. So if you ever had a seller that was interested in that route, you could actually just send them to Keller offers. So you're not getting cut out of it. And as soon as Keller offers buys it, you actually just list it and pay you listing commission for it.
Not yet.
Keller offers product, the cash buying product, will be here probably first quarter in the state of Utah, but it's in a lot of the other major markets. They've been basically trying to put more emphasis in the markets that we've needed to compete the most in with that product. Open Door just hasn't been giant here, and Zillow hasn't really been doing that much here. But part of it is just all their analytics say that we're going to really need the concierge products a lot more, so that's why they prioritize those ahead of those. So it is launched in Salt Lake, Davis, Weber, and Utah, Canada. We just barely launched it like a week or two ago. And Washington's probably a couple more weeks out as soon as we get the right contractors in. We've been sending some more contractors in. But what the concierge programs are, basically, you probably heard of some of these other companies that have them, like Compass really is trying to lead with just that one product as their main value of the company. But you have a seller that wants to fix up their house before they list it to maximize their net, and they don't have any money to do it. There's either some of our main agents or teams who actually try to loan them money or whatever. This is a program called Ready to List program out of the Keller Offers division that basically they can apply for a $75,000 loan for 12 months, 0% interest. Let me repeat that, $75,000 loan, 12 months, 0% interest. How many sellers have you worked with the last 12 months would like free interest money to fix up their house to net more money? Say they borrowed 30 grand, but it increased their net by $50,000, $60,000 by it just showing more and whatever, right? They actually have another product, and again, if they go over 12 months, you'll get charged interest, but clearly you want to time it so you're well beyond within that 12-month period.
So the idea is that after their sell, they're going to pay that back.
Yeah, so it just comes out of their net closing costs. So it's just a loan that comes out of the closing costs. A lot of sellers probably have a ton of equity right now, and not a lot of them have a lot of cash, right? And then to go through the pain of trying to get a HELOC or, you know, a second mortgage or a personal loan or something, it just takes too long. From start to finish, you could actually go get a $75,000 loan from the Keller Offers Concierge Division in like 6 days. So it's super fast.
That's not here yet.
That was the message I sent out trying to get general contractors. That link I sent out to ASC. We need general contractors.
So the KW offers where they're willing to pay cash for, so when we go into a listing presentation and we talk to the seller, says, look, I just need to get out of here, I'd love to get a cash offer, then we can come back and say, well, we've got a program for that. Now, we'll, like most agents that say, I'll buy your listings, you know, whatever the case, does Keller then come in and only pay 80% of the market?
It's pretty decent pricing. It is definitely a discount, but there's some training programs you have to go through to learn about all these concierge and Keller Offers, and there's another program called Ready to Stay that is live in the state of Utah right now, which is similar to the Ready to List, but it's actually people that just want to fix up their home and stay in their house. It's basically just cheap money and easy loan programs that we're able to offer our homeowners out there, that they can get a loan up to $75,000. They have different terms and different interest rates, but if it's like a 3-year term, it's like a 3.99 interest rate. A 5-year term is like a 4.5 interest rate. It's just really cheap home equity, like fix-up loans. But Ready the List one for sure is just 0% for 12 months. But the Keller Offers, which is not here yet, but again, yes, that will be one. So even my team that we talked about yesterday, we usually, most of our listing presentations say, hey, choose your own path. We've got 3 options. Number one is we could go find an investor and hopefully soon Keller Offers to just pay cash at a slight discount right now, fastest turnkey, least amount of hassles. Or we could just go list your house right now, go to market, get one of the best offers we can as your fee. Or we've got this other Ready to List program that we can actually fix up your home. We're going to have a consultant come in and see how we can improve the value of your home. It's not just cosmetic stuff, but what money could you put in to add value to your home. So to go and start learning about that, you can go to kelleroffers.com, and they've got like a couple hours of training that you can learn about it. But as soon as, and that's why he sent that email out, is because we need your general contractor referrals, because we want to make sure, because it's a cooperation between Keller's Offers department you as the agent and the contractor on what fix-ups make the most sense to add the most value that you're gonna get more than the dollar that you put into it kind of concept, so.
But like not just GCs, landscapers, plumbers, like as many different vendors as we can that'll sign up with the program, the better it'll be for us. Like I would say, for an example, would be the great polybutylene piping, right? So I know there's homes still in Bloomington Hills that have polybutylene piping that fail every once in a while, still is to this moment, and they have to go in, homeowners insurance doesn't cover it, they don't have any grants for it, but getting a bid in to have that completely replaced will help that resale value instantly, but
Yeah,
it's gonna fit into
launch-
that.
To launch, we need general contractors and landscapers only, but once we're launched, the better vendors we get in that system, the more accurate it will be.
Yeah.
You need landscapers too.
Yeah, because a lot of times it's maybe just some
Curb
cosmetic
appeal.
things outside,
Yep.
that can be helpful. Yeah. But they're really just trying to get general contractors, because then they can sub out to landscapers or any of these other ones, but the two they've been in is first contractors, then landscapers, then we can talk about anything else. So, cool. What else? What else have we talked about that's coming out that we need to chat about? Oh, the realtor lady says, take your phone calls outside, not in the hall side of the way.
She always takes that.
Okay. It's probably just her. She doesn't want to hear you guys talk about them.
Yeah, that very important business that is happening on the other side of
She'll
that.
also
Very,
tell
very
you
important
if you
business.
take the phone call out there to go outside.
Yeah.
If you miss,
Oh, good. Support your businesses, support your business. Realtor Association.
She told me, you take you over here, you're outside. So I went outside, I came back in, and she stops me and goes, by the way, if you get a phone call, you'll have to go outside. I'm like, you just told me. She's like, oh, well, I told you that. Holy.
Just making sure you heard me the first 2 or 3.
She is a Karen.
All right, any other KW announcements? Anything else that came out that we haven't talked about?
Oh, that was the KW.
Well, that one was.
Yeah, I think.
All right.
Good for you.
So these are my top 10 empire building tips that I really feel like have been so impactful as I built my kind of empire, my small empire. And a lot of things has just been through lessons learned through him or watching him or specific things he said to me or our group or whatever. So this is what we're going to go through. And you can take a picture. I'll even share these slides with Robert if you guys want to have the slides too. So the first one is think bigger. You know, no doubt I have learned from Gary Keller to think bigger. You know, some of you might have been to some other class where I talk about my upbringing or childhood, but like I grew up super poor, single mom, you know, me and my older brother, and just, you know, we didn't have most of the stuff that we probably wanted, right? But part of that is a lot of it too has to do with my family tree. You know, if you go survey the Christensen family tree, we've got to be the most paycheck to paycheck family tree in the history of the state of Utah, right? So part of that is I was absolutely programmed to just go get a crappy job and just survive, you know? And part of why I'm so passionate about Keller Williams is when I came to Keller Williams at 22 years old, 15 years ago, like it taught me how to think, you know, and it wasn't just one big, wow, I went to an event and all of a sudden I'm a super thinker. Like it was just this like consistent, like raising the level of thinking for me. And I think it just exposed me to a higher way of thinking and a life that I chose to have. You know, it starts out being like, oh, that'd be so cool to be like that person up on stage. And then be like, I wonder how they're doing it. And then be like, why not? And then be like, I'm gonna go get it. You know, like it just slowly rose my confidence. And no doubt that is just a mantra that's ripple affected down from Gary Keller, right? And there's one of the specific events, it was probably like 4 years ago. We were at a family reunion and it was that platinum mastermind that I was telling you about. So all the top 200 rainmakers of the company were sitting in that room. And Gary Keller, he basically just started it off a little bit talking about thinking. And Gary, again, he's easily a multi-billion-dollar billionaire right now. But if we actually end up going down the road in public and stuff, and he actually gets the full value of the company and sells some of the stock to us or whatever happens, he's easily going to be 10, 20, 30 billionaire, right? Like he'll be one of the richest people on the planet. But it's not just money, but it's just the people around him would go to war for him. Like it's just like he's such a good man in so many of his areas of life. He's created just this like ripple effect of leadership. Like our company just has literally some of the top leadership in the country. Like if we went to Apple, Google, you know, GE, like a lot of these other major companies and like surveyed like the integrity and just the depth of like cool people in that company, like KWI put at the very tippy top for sure. And again, part of it is just he's built a lot of stuff, and it's not just Keller Williams, but he owns a lot of other companies. You know, his real estate portfolio, I can't imagine how much real estate he owns, but he just thinks big, right? But part of it is he came into that Rainmaker group, and I think he really likes being around the Rainmaker group because he behaviorally identifies with those same people. They're mavericks, you know, they're high thinkers, they're hard workers, you know, they're just, you know, and he started out just saying, he's like, out of all the rooms that I'm in, I feel like I'm most like you guys. He's like, really, he's like, honestly, I can say that you are my equal. He's like, I feel like one of you guys when I'm in this room. But he's like, there's one difference between me and you, and the reason that I'm up here and you guys are down there in the chairs is like, I think bigger than you. He's like, that's it. And he just challenged us to just raise our level of thinking. And no matter what it is, just think bigger, you know, times by 10, times by 100, you know. Because why? Like, why is thinking bigger important? For me, it's just thinking bigger leads to the bigger habits, right? If you have a bigger goal, even the way that me and my partner fundamentally worked our finances on our partnership, you know, a lot of our agents, when they close a deal, they pay their little split with Keller Williams, the rest of the money just dumps in their bank account and they blink and it's just gone, right? Like that's just natural people. You just spend the money as soon as it hits your bank account. And the only reason that like, you know, my world was set up a little different is because I was in a partnership. So the income had to dump into our team bank account. Our expenses would come out of that. And we had a bunch of policies where we said, all right, we're going to save 10, 20%. We're going to move it into our investment fund. We're going to save this money for taxes. Like it became so much easier because it was this like fictitious business account. It wasn't like my bank account. And whatever's left over, we just split 50-50 and that would just hit my bank account and his bank account. And then as soon as it hit my bank account, poof, it disappeared, right? Like I'm no better than anybody else, but I just simply had a different structure because I was in a partnership. And part of that is by the time it hit my bank account, it was way less. It was like 10, 20 cents of the dollar that we earned GCI versus 90 cents of the dollar that normally would go in there. So part of it is we just had to raise our goal because we wanted that bottom number to get bigger. So like it just forced us to have a bigger goal, which then no doubt multiplied the number of bigger habits that we had to accomplish a bigger goal than we normally would have had we had separate personal goals, even added up together. Does that make sense? So part of it is just whatever your goal is for 2022, like whether you believe you can go hit it or not, double it, triple it, times it by 10, and then start wrapping your brain around the plan and the habits and the way of life that you're going to have to live to go accomplish that. So even if you fall short and you hit half of that goal, but it end up being double the original goal, like great, you know, just force yourself to have bigger habits. In the MREA, these are the 9 ways that millionaire real estate agents think. And again, the whole first part of that book has nothing to do with technical strategies of running a business. It is just mindset. Like the whole first 100 pages is all mindset of the MREA. The first one is think powered by a big why. Do you work for money or do you work for something bigger than that that's driving you to go accomplish it? What is your big why? Number 2 is think big goals and big models. Those are the 2 foundational ways of thinking. And then the supportive ones are think possibilities, think action, think without fear, think progress, think competitively and strategically, think standards, and think service. Those are 9 ways a mega agent thinks. This is how I think, even in the process that I set goals, is I just start, every year I do my own little goal setting workshop where I basically just start with my bucket list. What is anything I ever want to do? You know, so all right, in the health area of life or the money area of life, I want this much money, I want this much tax income, I want all these rentals, blah, blah, blah. Like I just try to remove the negative self-talk that I put in, and I just create my bucket list, right? And I actually have compiled this giant bucket list for every area of life. So even when I go to the next year, I already have a bunch of them, and then I just keep adding to it, all the cool things I want to do. And then all I really do is just break it down in chronological time periods. So that take me 1 year, 3 years, or 5 or more years to accomplish. So I start putting timelines, and they start moving from dreams or bucket list items to like goals, right? And then again, every year I try to prioritize what is the one thing in that health area of life, or the one thing in my business area of life, or whatever, that if I accomplish that, everything else gets easier or unnecessary, right? Like health, for example, right? Like even health. There's so many things that make up a good health area of life. But for me, it's just when I get my butt out of bed and I work out in the morning, that's the one thing, if I do that every day, I eat better, right? I don't eat like crap that day. I end up sleeping better. I'm less stressed that day. Like I feel good about myself. Like that's the one thing in my health area of life I can do every day that makes everything else easier and necessary. So just look at that as your week, your month, your year. What is the one thing you can do that's driving those goals that can help just everything else get easier and necessary? And then again, it just turns into habits for you. This is not a quantum leap if you haven't seen this, but Gary has just gotten crystal clear on what his habits are in the different areas of life. These are the 6 disciplines. He has self, spiritual, physical, time, money, and growth. So if you haven't actually been to Quantum Leap, I'd go to this because he explains this for like an hour and a half. But the reality habit, that's his very first habit, the reality habit. That basically just tells himself he needs to get real. How many times do we tell ourselves a story that helps ease what the reality is for us? Just when life shows up, get real with yourself. If you're not where you want to be health-wise, money-wise, relationship-wise, or whatever, it is 100% your fault. Take ownership of it, get real with yourself. And the next one is just set your mind. What's your mindset? How are you going to change that? And the next one is just get into action. Start moving down that road, right? Even down on the money ones. His 3 habits is the gross income habit. For you to go make a bunch of money, you got to be in a job that makes some money, right? If you're going to put yourself, you just got to go get some gross income. Just up your gross income and it makes your money life a lot easier to start building some momentum, right? His next one, which I followed for probably 10 years, is a 70-30 rule. Every dollar you make, 30% of it needs to be moving over into your investment world, and you're never going to touch it again, okay? And live off 70% of it. So every dollar he makes that hits your bank account, you've got to consider it 70 cents, and 30 cents just absolutely moves over to your right side of the world, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Cool. You can go through some of these later on, even physical nutrition, exercise, stress management habit. My next empire building tip, which we spent the whole day on yesterday, but it was be a student of behavior. Be a student of behavior. Learn about your behavior, learn about others' behavior, learn about different kinds of behavior, right? We talked about the KPA all day yesterday. Use the KPA. It's the most underutilized tool in our company for some reason, but it's yet the most powerful tool that I've ever seen. We talked about that. Gary just spent 4 or 5 hours role-playing CV in one of the most boring meetings, but he was just trying to prove a point that is super important to us. But even just how do you learn more about behavior? And it's been cool to observe Gary, like when he interviews someone, like watch him when he's interviewing someone on stage at family reunion, when you go to family reunion. He always asks like some sort of general question, and literally almost every time his second question is immediately just like piercing their soul. Like he always would just say, how was your day or whatever? Oh, what did you learn from it? How do you feel about that? Like he always just try to really cut through the fluff and learn about that person. And it's authentic, it's genuine, but he just really is a student of behavior constantly. And after, I think he's like 67 now, like I think he has a pretty good glimpse of what behavior is, but still, it's just crazy to see him constantly learning and listening at a high level. And then again, just being a student of behavior, like all the different businesses I have, like hiring great people and absolutely investing in them. Your people will no doubt be your greatest asset. If I could talk about owning a piece of real estate or having an incredible person that's talented, that's a 10, that I can just truly invest in, my ROI on that person will just be an infinite amount compared to like an actual hard asset. But again, you got to have great people, right? If you're going to try to pour all this investment into mediocre people or 7s, probably one of the worst investments you could do, right? Just get great people. The next one, choose your profits wisely. What does that mean, Tyler?
Just I think the people you surround yourself and choose to watch and use as an example, just be choosy.
Yeah. Who has kids in here? At any time have you been concerned about who your kids are associated with?
Yes.
Why do we want our kids to hang out with good friends?
Because they influence each other. Become a product of their environment.
Yeah. And you as parents, you really care about that, right? Yeah, my kids are 10 and 11 and already starting to hang out with some suspects, some suspects. I'm like, no.
Give the KPA.
Yeah, give them the KPA.
The reason we want our kids to hang out with good people, good kids instead of the run-of-the-mill, that what we think of as bad kids maybe, is because we were kids ourselves and we already lived that life.
We're the bad kids.
And so we were the bad
What they're
kids.
doing.
Whatever. So knowing, and I think that's what it is with life. It's a matter of, we lived that part, we grew in that part, whether we took our knocks or not. Now we want the better part for our kids. And I think our parents were doing the same thing. They lived that, so we're living it. So now we're doing the same thing.
Yeah, I just think we put a lot of thought and heart into that, our kids, right? And who we want them to hang out and why we want them, even just business-wise, right? Your income will be the average income of the 5 people you associate with most. Like there's so many things around that. But for some reason, we hold the bar up here for our children and we hold the bar down here for ourselves, right? And part of that is you absolutely need to choose your profits wisely. And the older you get, the one thing you realize is how precious time is and how precious like relationships are, right? And you need to be spending your time with the absolute best mentors, relationships that you've got, right? And part of that is the challenge of our industry has been hijacked. It has been absolutely hijacked. If you don't make a profit, you become one. You ever met a real estate agent that doesn't run a profitable business and all of a sudden they turn into a coach and they kind of turn into a trainer? You ever seen that? Even a lot of teams, right? A lot of teams that are running very crappy businesses and there's no way that they can provide way more value for less money. They got better splits and all that sort of thing. Most likely they're just selling real estate. Their business is zeroed out profitability and they start panicking. They start looking for other streams of income and they immediately start turning to become a coach and become a trainer, right? And there's even people that walked across our family reunion stage that starts going out and preaching, and then 2 years later, they're filing bankruptcy, right? So you have to be careful who you're patterning your life after, right? Like who wants the chubby trainer? Who wants the broke financial planner, right? Who wants the therapist that's been divorced 7 times?
Who wants the realtor that doesn't own any investment property?
Yeah. Same thing. You got to be authentic, right? So be careful, and if your financial planner will not show you their balance sheet, you should probably not have them advising you on your finances, right? Same thing. We created a policy because Gary became so serious about this 3 years ago. COVID kind of happened, but like nobody can be on a family reunion panel anymore on any of these national events without their profit and loss statement being audited by the accounting firm that we contract with at family reunion. Crazy. But part of it is we went too far down the road of celebrating gross closed units, gross closed volume, gross GCI. And we didn't fully know if they were running a profitable business. And I know P&Ls can be sensitive, so we had to make a commitment that they agreed to have their P&L audited before they go on stage, which we're the only company that does that. I'll tell you that much. So be careful. What the? And then again, our #1 challenge with our education calendar is our agents reach boredom. An agent is not running their business properly, and they are already bored being taught on the subject.
You got to reshare.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Who's ever done that before? Oh, the internet keeps going out.
Got bored?
Yeah, I think the Wi-Fi's out. I'll check in a sec. Well, that's part of it. Is just we like my demographic, like the whatever I am, old millennial maybe or young, whatever the next one is. I grew up on what? I grew up on 30-minute TV shows. I remember eating cereal in front of them, right? So like my entire generation has a 30-minute attention span, right? The next generation, they grew up on what?
TikTok.
They grew up on YouTube.
Oh.
They grew up on YouTube. You know what the average length of a YouTube video is? 7 minutes. 7 minutes. So their attention span has been programmed into them to be 7 minutes. The generation now, father generation, what is the average length of a TikTok? Legit 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? So we have an attention span issue in our society. Yes, right? So that's part of it. We're back.
Well, the reality is they actually check out less than that. If you can keep them on your TikTok for longer than 3 seconds, it actually gets higher ranking, which is crazy. 3 seconds. That's really pathetic. It's like quick judgment. Don't like her, don't like him.
Yeah.
There you go.
Very good.
Not interested.
I like their look.
And that's why I've always loved what Gary said, is just treat our courses and our curriculum like you're going to a grade school, right? Like first grade is the first time you fully attended, second grade you just attended again. And yesterday when I said I literally attended 12 full versions of provisioning, is because I followed that to a T. So I'm like, I really want to figure out and learn to master hiring people, and you just have to be willing to just slow down, shut your brain from running away, and just be present in a lot of our classes. So whatever issues that you think you're having in your business, go back to the fundamental courses and just show up like you did the first time, right? This is from Quantum Leap as well, but he, role models and mentors, he feels like is absolutely one of our most important relationships out there. He divides them up: financial, business, career, personal, physical, spiritual, going out and getting a mentor in each one of those. I do it slightly different. This is how the areas of life that I run off. So these are the different areas that I set goals in every year. I set specific goals in health, soul, relationships, time, career, wealth, and impact. So I actually, one of the years, one of my goals in relationships was I wanted a paid coach, someone that I was paying to hold me accountable in that area of life. So I have a personal trainer that I have a Zoom appointment every single Friday for 30 minutes. I have more of a soul coach. That's the only one I don't pay for. I have a relationship, more of like a therapist specializing in relationships. It helps me be a better dad and a better husband. My time and my career are kind of the same. MAPS coach. It's part of the new transformational coaching department in MAPS coaching. He's just an absolute career whiz, but he's actually fundamentally been fantastic at holding me accountable to using my time better and staying at my 20%, offloading and saying no and all that stuff. And then I have a wealth coach. And then I have a wealth coach. I have a separated coach that specifically coaches me on my balance sheet, my passive income, that type of stuff that I pay every week. And then my impact coach was actually a little hard one to find, but I ended up just finding a guy that he runs the United Way charity for Utah and Salt Lake County. That's just been basically an executive for charitable organizations forever. Because we've started a couple charities, but I said, hey, can I just pay you couple $100 a month to actually meet with me once a month for an hour and just mentor me on how to go make a bigger impact and be a better leader of that. So that's my current one. I might even just switch the next year or so to maybe like a John Maxwell coach or something. But even if you can't, and that's part of it, is my next thing is spend 10% of your income on personal development. So part of it is paying yourself first, but then also 10% of that should be going to fundamentally to your personal development. So it might start out small where you might get just a business coach. But as your income and your world grows, start adding some of these other coaches. But at a minimum, you should probably even just have a mentor or even someone's life that you're studying, right? Go study Mother Teresa, go study Warren Buffett or whatever, and learn about them and basically have your mental board of directors, that, all right, what would Warren Buffett do? And think about everything you learn from them to help make those decisions. Okay, the next one is follow the systems and models. Follow the systems and models. It's so common sense to say this, but yet so many people don't do it, right? Here's just the poster graphic in MREA. You need to build your foundation on models, then get creative, right? Whereas the unstable foundation is you start with creativity and try to build some models on top of that. And part of it is the first, my team that I have right now was the effect of my third commitment to building a team. We built a team for 2 years and another one for about 18 months that just fully imploded, and we ended up back just being solo agents, me and my partner. And part of it is because the first time we read the MREA book and we're like, that sounds so cool, let's just go build a team. And we just started hiring a bunch of people. In like a 72-hour period, we hired an admin, a buyer's agent, and a showing assistant, 72 hours. And we just thought we'd just figure it out later. And clearly, just after about 1.5 years, 2 years, we had to finally look back and we're like, we literally made less money than had we just gone out and sold real estate, right? So we tried to learn a little bit more. And then the second time, we're just like, let's just bring on salespeople only. Then we don't have any fixed expense. anything that happens can come out of commission or whatever, and brought in some salespeople, and then eventually just the erosion of not having systems and admin and operation, we just fell on our face and we just lost everything, right? So after that second failure, I'm like, I am so sick of wasting my time and making less money with spending more time on the business, blah, blah, blah. I am not going to hire a single person to our team until we absolutely figure out how to do this. So I spent a whole year going, I went to career vision like 4 times in that 1 year. I read the MREA probably 7 times in that thing. I talked to interviewed, I've got a coach. I just really committed to personal development on that. And after 12 months, that's when I finally rose the bar. And I preached this yesterday, but I said, I am not hiring someone until I see the director of operations show up as a candidate. And after that, you know, that's the year we did 60 transactions. I went a whole year trying to figure out how to do that. And then finally we started looking for someone. I found that guy, hired him, and in the next 12 months, we doubled our business. We had 123 transactions. And part of it is because I spent 4 years just lollygagging in creativity and then thinking I was adding some models on top to it. But I literally didn't make a single decision the next 3 years into that 3rd phase unless the MREA or Keller model specifically said it. Like I just refused to think with my own brain and I just copied the book. And it worked, weird, right? The budget model. How many of you follow the budget model? You know exactly what % of your expenses are in the right categories, right? Expense categories for lead generation should be 10%, right? No more than 10% of total GCI should be spent on lead generation. So if the majority of your business, you're buying Zillow leads and you're paying more than 10%, are you out of model? Yes. Is that sustainable? No. You got to make sure that you're building in model, right? Again, the company tells you exactly when and how to hire what positions with the organization model, right? All right, the next one, hold yourself accountable. Do not settle. On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being you are very, very, very accountable to yourself. 1 being what is accountability? Where would you say you guys are at? 9? 9? 4. Eric?
It's kind of a month, you know?
Have a good day.
Right now I feel like I'm doing really good on forcing myself to put people in place that will be accountable because I don't trust myself month to month.
Yeah.
So right now I feel pretty good, but like you asked me 6 months ago and I was like, I was an ass like all over the place.
I get it. And even just the concept of being accountable is my absolute favorite personal perspective. So if you've ever been to the 6th personal perspective class, it's basically the front curriculum of every course now. Like it's so important. Gary Keller, over years and years of interviewing people, he kept asking this question, what makes very, very successful people different from everybody else? And he started finding commonalities and common trends and common characters and common habits that basically showed up over and over and over with successful people. And he was able to organize them into 6 different things, right? Like number 1 is very successful people absolutely commit to being the best, self-mastery, right? People that make the most money throughout their path, they want to be the best listing agent or the best person at prospect, and they're committed to it, right? This is the last one. This is being a victim versus being accountable, right? And life happens, reality shows up, no matter what it is. When life happens and reality shows up, you have a decision. You have a decision to go be a victim, or you have a decision to go accountable, right? Number 1, on here on the victim side, the first thing you do is you don't seek reality. You ask no questions. And then a lot of times victims start to fight reality. That's not the way it is. That's not how I see it. That's your perception. They start denying reality. Or number 3, they start blaming. They start projecting onto other people. If everybody would just do their job, it's not my fault, it's yours. The market is to blame. The economy is to blame. Why didn't you do it? And they start making personal excuses. They start deflecting. Nobody told me. It's not my job. I did my part. I was never given a chance. It doesn't work here. I did what I was supposed to. It didn't work. I can't think of anything to do. And then you just wait and hope. You resign. You have resignation. If it was meant to be, it will happen. Let's just wait and see. We're done all we could. Let's just wait and see. Time will tell. It's out of my hands. The proof will be in the pudding. Have you heard yourself saying any of those things the last 12 months? I've said a few. But part of it is the more this is one of those charts I printed off and I have it stapled right above my computer. Because it is just very natural for me to every once in a while say one of those things, but I want to recognize that as fast as I can. And oh, I'm a big shoot, and I'll zip back over to the accountable side, right? Whereas when you're accountable, You immediately seek reality. You start acknowledging reality. You seek clarity. This is the way it is. I got it. I'll see what's going on. And then you own it, your energy and focus. If it is to be, it's up to me. What do I want? I've got to do something. This is my responsibility. And then you find solutions, possibilities. What are my options? How can I get what I want? What can I do? And then you get on with it. Action plan. Let's go get started. Time's up. Let's go. This is what I will do. Okay, let's do it. Let's get on with it. Okay.
Are you sharing these slides with us?
Yep. I'll send them to Robert and you can have them. Yep. So even going back into the other areas of life, you might think that you're showing up here in a few of them. All right, maybe you're great at the business side of it. Maybe you're great at the money side of it. How are you showing up with your health area of life? How are you showing up with your wealth, your relationship area of life? The most common top producer that really has their life put together, you get on a phone call, walk out in the hall and see if she can get her internet fixed.
Yeah, I got you.
The most common area of life that I see our top producers show up as victims is what?
Relationships.
Loves.
No time.
Time. Our top producers absolutely take the victim route with their time more than any other area of life. They feel like the world is just totally controlling their time. And again, it's just another area of life that you have the choice to be either accountable or be a victim. The most successful people I know absolutely are the most accessible people I know. They control their time and they control their schedule, they control their days, right? And that's been my journey for the last 3 years. A lot of my major goals that I've had to do is I had to start figuring out how to move more into me controlling my life, me controlling my time, than feeling like it was under control by someone else, right?
Well, I also think it's interesting that for the newer agents too, when they come in, like they get, 1 or 2 deals under contract and they're just like, wow, just feel like it's just so overwhelming. And it goes back to what you were originally saying about the whole mindset thing. If you aren't working on your mindset every single day, there's no way you possibly could double or triple the amount of deals that you're doing per month, because you can't even, your mind hasn't even thought that far in advance.
Yeah.
Even though you have systems in place. I mean, I know people that have transaction coordinators working for them or whatever, and they still run them up in their files just because it feels good to be busy, right? Like they just try to be busy and they stop doing the things that got them the transaction. So that's why they always are doing this.
Yeah.
Which once you can finally master this and you keep a steady pace as to like a steady income or a steady production, that's when you realize, oh, I've made some changes. Like I can actually see growth, because growth sometimes is difficult to document if it's not a monetary, value. Like how do you document your mindset? Well, that's how. Is that growth of being able to handle more transactions?
Yeah, my 2 favorite old laws on that is, busyness is not business, right? And then movement is not achievement. And that's a lot of it is just, I think there's a lot of people that try to make themselves feel good that they're working hard, or they're spending so much time working and stuff. But if you actually went and introspected the calendar, and like the one thing that Gary always did for every once in a while, he's like, all right, I'm going to hire a temp worker to follow you around all day and write down every 5 minutes what you're doing. Like how would you show up that day having a temp worker follow you around, right? Regardless, even when you have employees, you really want them to be productive because you're paying their wage, but would you hire yourself, in the way that you manage your time? And one of the best ways that I learned to just get real with myself instead of telling my same story over and over with my time is clearly pre-time blocking your calendar is important. We all know that, right? And I would even color code it. So before I roll into the week, if you look at my Google Calendar, it is perfectly time blocked every week for the last 7 years of my life. And then I color code it. And for me, green, which is money, right? Green is my 20% activities of the areas of life. So clearly lead generation is for business, working out is for my health goals, date night is for my relationship goals, whatever. I time block my 20% before everything else. And then I fill in the blue, which is just things that only I could do, only I can eat my own lunch, right? Only I can drive to work, some of those things that just have to happen. And then everything else, basically, as part of my 80%, I actually code in yellow. So part of that is when I look at my calendar, I can see how much yellow is on my calendar. And then I can figure out how to start making goals of how to get that yellow off, whether it's a tool, system, a person, or whatever, outsourcing something, right? So that's my first strategy, and I think most of our top agents are good at that. But what I actually ended up starting doing is not only would I pre-plan it, at the end of every day, before I was going to bed or I was planning the next day, I would actually go in and edit my calendar for that day that I already spent the time, which most people don't do, and I would actually truly fill in where I spent my time. So if I got a minute or something, you know, this meeting canceled, I spent this time on that. So at the end of the week, I could truly authentically see where all my time was spent, so I could just get real with myself. Because a lot of times I'd set my time block, even though I might have only followed it 50%, and I look back at it, I'm like, oh, that's good, I'm so good at my time, right? And again, real estate agents are just, you know, a lot of them are just trying to get out and doing the work. You know, at the end of the day, like our job is to talk to people, go on appointments, negotiate contracts, whatever, you know. You want to go through a bunch of lead generation strategies and stuff. Like so many agents just want to figure out how to automate the crap out of stuff. But at the end of the day, like the reason we're protected in this industry, no matter what goes on, is because of our personal relationships with our database and our sphere of influence. And that's where all the money's been coming in, is to figure out how to get between us and our clients. And if we're just simply doing our job and not trying to get out of the work of it, we will always have an incredible opportunity in this industry. Absolutely. The purpose of the goal is not necessarily about achieving the goals, to set the plan. The value of the goal is to accept the goal, then you have to set the plan to achieve the goal. Grow disruptively, not organically. What does that mean to you guys? Grow disruptively, not organically.
I think it just means to carve your own path instead of just following the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
I think I've heard him say, you know, we're standing in a gap, right? We're finding a gap and we're an immovable object in that gap. And I think when you think about growing disruptively, you're trying to disrupt what is the typical business path, right? And so finding ways in using the models as your foundation and that creativity is that when you go, you build off of the foundational models, but that creativity is specifically directed towards growing disruptively into a new space, a space that isn't already occupied. Organically tends to stick more with status quo, right? When you wait for things to kind of happen just as they come, you're going to stabilize into a status quo place rather than proactively going and getting into a space that's going to grow with intention.
Yeah. What did Amazon do that was disruptive?
We got into shipping and all kinds of different things.
I think the e-commerce side is simple. They basically said, hey, we're going to make it way more convenient. We're going to drop it on your door super fast, and we're going to make it a lower price for you, right? And I didn't go to a single store for Christmas the last 3 years. Like everything just ships to my house, right? It's so convenient. What did Tesla do that was disruptive? Electric cars, right? But just the quality of them, like how awesome the software and the technology inside, like clearly they disrupted the auto, industry a little bit. So it's just like, how can you disrupt the real estate industry, right? Like you just don't think organically, think disruptively. Even real estate brokerage wise, right? Training and coaching, we've been the #1 training and coaching real estate company for 30 years. Like we have the best training and coaching, right? But again, how's that going? Like we're a great company, but do we just have a monopoly on everything? No, because part of it is just training and coaching are not disruptive. People can easily copy it, or they can even just say that they have great training and coaching, right? But part of it is like we're having to reinvent our company actually into disruptive things that are very, very difficult for other companies to have. These are just like Keller Mortgage, like the whole bundled services. Like if we can deliver a transaction right now, for me to buy Eric's house and me to move into it is 11%, right? $500,000 house, title, mortgage, home warranty, realtors, all that on average, about 11%. That's a lot of money. $55,000 just for me to pack my shiz up and move into his house, right? That's why in my Argentina market, because it's such a less regulated governmental market, 33%, a third of the market is totally black market, a third of the market is totally white market, and a third's in the gray. What that means is do they follow the same governmental procedures and above board like we do? So 100% of our market's in the white, but in Argentina, a third of their market, I literally will just pull up to Eric's house. I bring a suitcase with $150,000 cash. I say, I want to move into your house. He says, okay, adios. And then he leaves. I move my family in. Nobody knows, but I just moved into his house the same way that a buyer and seller move into each other's house, right? And then the third in the gray is just kind of this middle, right? That does some, but doesn't do some, right? So part of that is just, how do we actually have bundled services? The reason we're getting to Keller Mortgage and Keller Covered and all these is because we've got to figure out how to give the consumer an easier, less hassled process for less money, right? And the war right now is the first one to do that, all very conveniently on a platform, on an app, right? Like that's where all that money's going. So part of that is we just feel like we don't want that to come out of the realtor side. We want to figure out how to carve and make it cheaper by actually pulling it out of these other ones. Like Keller Mortgage, they're trying to zero out the profit. Keller Covered, trying to zero out the profit of that to help protect our commissions, right? Even technology, no doubt will be disruptive. Like if we can actually just help someone totally start to finish, right on an app, buy a house, that will absolutely disrupt the industry, right? Expansion, profit share. So just part of it is just what can you do in your business that's disruptive? What can you do in the business that's disruptive? And for me, I was sitting in family reunion like 4 years ago, and there's 15,000 people in the room, and I'm like, I'm just looking around. I'm like, I am just exactly like every other person in here. I'm like, we are doing the exact same thing that everybody else is doing in here. And I'm like, how do we as a team set ourselves apart, you know? And part of that, what is the least favorite thing to do out of all realtors? Lead generation, right? Nobody wants to, like, holding my agents accountable to lead generating just drives them bonkers. It is like herding cats, right? So I'm like, how can I build a team that our agents never have to lead generate again? Like, how do I build like a hub, ISAs, you know, or systems, whatever, that all they have to do is service the business coming out of that. If I can figure that out, and I could come to a room of 100 realtors and say, hey, come on my team, you're gonna make $200,000, and you'll never lead generate again. How many people can I recruit to my team?
All of them.
All of them, right? Or a lot of them, maybe. So part of that, I'm like, all right, that is exactly what we're trying to get to on our Red Sign team. Value proposition is just never lead generate again. There's a couple teams that are getting close. Lance Logan team down in Austin, Houston, Texas, they're pretty close. Their ISA team is so incredible, and they're so efficient. Their scripts, their dialogues, all that are so well that all but maybe one agent, because they've got, I think they're close to like 80 agents now. Basically, every one of their agents have actually said, you know what, I'd rather have the ISA team call my personal database. I'd rather pay an extra 10% in a commission split, so I never have to make a phone call again. And they're so good at it, now they just serve up those SOI deals back, and they're on a 40-60 split instead of 50-50. Crazy.
They're gonna do like 1,200 transactions this year?
They did, I think they're more closer to 2,000. I think 1,200 was last year.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember.
Huge numbers. 80 agents. 80 agents. Jesse and Larkin went down there this year.
Yeah.
They went to town.
This is an easy one, but again, sometimes we tell ourselves a story that's keeping us away from this. Focus on seller listings. Why is it important to focus on seller listings?
Control the commission.
You control the market, you control the commission, you control your time, you control the inventory. What else?
Lead generate too.
You usually
They have
get
buyer
on average
base.
1 or 2 buyer transactions for the listing you have, right? I think it's easier to live a life worth living working with sellers because it's more of a job than it is a 24/7, you know, online emergency support hotline, right? Listings with a high leverage, maximum earning opportunities in our industry. So part of that is what are you doing and how much time are you spending or money are you spending attracting buyers into your business that need to be switched to listings, right? Forever, I said, oh yeah, absolutely. We are a listings only focused team, you know, and then 1 month I'm like, are we really? And I just opened up our P&L. I'm like, how much money are we actually spending on buyer lead generation? And we were spending $4,000 on ads, all sorts of pay-per-click, all that, attracting buyer leads. I'm like, what in the hell are we doing, right? And we immediately cut it off. We spend $0 on buyer marketing. And it's helped us go from like 30% of our businesses to sellers. Now this year we'll probably end at like 48% sellers, which is a good 50-50 is a balance. But again, why are we spending money to attract buyers or only attract buyers when we spend the money to attract listings? Oh, my Zoom.
This is why you cut it out. You gotta share the screen again one more time.
Dina and Katie better be paying attention. That's all I know.
We have 10 online, but 9 online.
So we asked Gary in one of our masterminds, we said, Gary, what would you do if you had to start over in a totally different marketplace? Like you just built the company, everything that you know, we just plopped you down in the middle of St. George. What would you do starting over to go build a real estate business? And he sat there and he thought about it for a minute and he said, you know what I'd do? He's like, I would immediately just pick a small geographical area that has a good purchase price, has good turnover, good purchase prices, maybe not too high, not too low, right? But then also turnover. What's turnover? The rate at which those homes are turning over and selling, right? One of my agents once thought Highland City would be a great farm. So he picked out Highland City because it's this perfect little square basically on the map. He got all the addresses. He bought a whole year's worth of postcards. You know, he started knocking doors, started sending to them. And after probably like 8 months, he's like, I haven't got a single listing. And I'm like, well, did you run the turnover of that city? He's like, oh, well, let me do that. He went and ran the turnover. Highland City has the lowest turnover of any city in Utah County. On average, it's every 13 years someone will move. Where Lehigh, right next door, is like 2.5 years. Most people that move to Highland never leave Highland, right? That is, they're planting their roots. So, okay, even purchase prices are equivalent. Go find a Lehigh neighborhood that has higher turnover, right? So he said, I would find a great purchase price, a decent turnover. He's like a good neighborhood that I just feel that I want to target. And he was like, I would just hammer it. He's like, I would just knock doors. I'd send postcards. I'd call them. He's like, I would do whatever it took to get a flag in the ground. He's like, even if I had to go, he's like, he whispered, he's like, even if I have to go and take a listing for 0% commission and make them sign an NDA agreement just so I can get a sign in the yard, so I can immediately go knock, hey, I listed a house, I'm going to buyer, blah, 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 just so he could get that second listing, then the third listing, then the fourth listing, and he would just dominate an area, dominate a farm, and turn it into a sphere of influence. That's it. Like after everything he knows, that's the same thing that we do. But how many of us have a geographical territory and we are just owning the crap out of it to turn it into a great database, right? Instead, we're just spreading out too much and then we just become too inefficient versus just dominating the area. And then some other questions on seller listings. How many seller leads will you generate that will turn into listings that sell? Do you have enough leads that when closing your current system that you would net $1 million? There's only two problems in this industry. Number one, do you have enough leads that when contacted turn into the amount of money that you want to make? If the answer is yes, then just convert that business and get better at leverage, whatever. If you're no, you still have enough leads, right? There's only two problems. Either have enough leads or you don't have enough leads. Right now, my organization, we have more leads than we're efficiently closing. So we need to devote more time to conversion ratios, talent, skill building, training, that type of thing. So what is your issue? Just figure it out. It's only 1 or 2 problems in this business. And they're actually writing a book called The Path is in the Map, all about the same concept, but the path is in the map. Everything in life has a number attached to it. Everything that matters has a number attached to it. Every agent needs to find their map. Whatever your number is. If you want to go make $1 million in this business, cool, I don't care. Just reverse engineer that into the map. There is absolutely a path with the map, right? All right, I think this is the last couple, and then we're going to do a couple of other activities. Pay yourself first. What does that mean? Pay yourself first. Who pays himself first? Who pays himself last? Who pays yourself first? What do you do? What do you do?
25. I put 25% on commissions away.
How?
After tax too, I have to do tax too. I don't know. I just have it automated from my accountant guy. He just does it. I just tell him how much I want to put away, and it just goes to a side account, and I don't ever see it. But that's also allocated for other things. It just stays there though, and I don't do anything with it except for draw what is supposed to come out.
So what was your GCI this year? Robert?
My GCI?
Well, it's like
She looked at you.
3.
I haven't looked at it yet.
350.
Okay.
3.
So where does he put that money?
Where does it? Oh, it go. I have a couple LLCs that are set up, and they just go into the LLCs.
So you put away 80-ish?
No, 25. I put 25
And
away.
of 80 grand of your 300
Yes,
something?
yeah.
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 Cool.
Yeah.
What else
So
do you
I'm
guys do?
growing that so I can buy investment property.
Cool. What else do you guys do?
I just have a spreadsheet, so when it closes, it automatically just takes each percentage
And that's how much I can take from, it's kind of like you do with your business, right? You put the taxes, you put work on the business, invest, stuff like that. And so whatever's in that column for me is the first column. And that's what I know I can take home that year. Whether I take it all out that next month, which I don't, I've realized that I only need X amount to pay my bills, go on entertainment, do whatever I need to do. So I take that month, leave the rest of it in the account for a rainy day if I,
I want to add one thing to it. What I learned was actually from you from the ALC meeting that I came up to. I actually went up there with the intention of like learning a little bit about the ALC, and what you actually had hit on that drove home for me was you mentioned with your profit sharing checks that you just bank them away, and then you eventually bought an investment property. Like I immediately came home and made sure that I already had the other stuff taken care of where I was putting that money, but any money that was coming in from other stuff, like the, profit sharing or title or whatever it is that you've got investments in, I opened up an LLC just specifically for that, which is, it's really, really itty bitty small because we're just getting started, right? But it's okay. Like it was an aha moment for me that I don't need that much. Like I don't need a $5,000 check. I don't need it. I got enough over here. It's fine. So why would I cash it? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, good, I got $5,000. I'll just go dump it on something. You know what I mean? And that's what you were saying earlier. But sometimes when you go to a meeting and you go to a training, you end up walking away with a little gem that has nothing to do with the event that you actually were there for. And it was a big aha moment for me. So I think it's important to point out.
Yeah, it's important to do it first and on top, right? When you pay yourself first. Part of it too is once that income became bigger and you start counting on it in your personal bank account, to pull it back out, would be way more hard. Yeah, way more difficult.
So what do you mean by that? You asked, but.
So part of it is just when you make money, and if you're a normal salary person, it can sometimes be easier to save 10, 50, 120, or whatever it is per check, right? But because we're so roller coaster and when we get commission, you still have to have the same commitment and diligence when that commission check hits, that you're going to move over whatever that pay yourself first amount is, right? And I do that before taxes. I do that before investing. For investing, I do it before paying debt. I do it before paying expenses. It literally is off the top. So if I make $1 million, immediately 300 grand is absolutely committed to my right side of the world, which we'll talk about in a second. But it's just right here. It's just out of the MREI, right? A millionaire's investor's budget, right there, right on the top is their investment spending. Then income taxes, required spending, and then discretionary spending, right? Here is the budget of a normal investor's budget, right? And then here is the typical consumer's budget. What percent of our society is right here? Upper 90s, yeah, probably, right? And then here's probably another 3, 4, 5%, and that's probably maybe 1%, right? So this is what I do. I think I was talking to one of you about entity structure, but this is the basic entity structure that you need for your real estate business, right? And part of that is when you get into real estate, you don't understand that you actually just started 2 businesses, right? You have your left side, and then you have your right side is what I call it. Your left side is all you swapping time for money, right? So that is your commission income. When you flip a house, say you want to go own part of a title company or you own part of a real estate brokerage or whatever, it's basically your time, your energy is swapping for some sort of income from that. That's also like time and energy, but it's also the way that it's taxed, ordinary income, right? When you own long-term assets, it's long-term capital gains. It's a different and lower taxation. It's a gift of the IRS gods, right? Is owning assets. So over here, you want an S corp set up. You want an S corporation set up. So part of that is you will only ever be the only person that owns that S corp. You never partner up on an S corp. So even my real estate team is an entity up here. I'll show you my org chart in a sec. But my Red Sign LLC is owned 50% by my S corp, 50% by my partner's S corp. So when we have profit, half of that just flows down to my S corp. So I'm up to probably 12, 13 income streams that every month all funnel into my S corp. And then my S corp, I'm telling you the name of it, Spoko, S-P-O-K-O. I normally have a Spoko shirt on.
I was gonna say, I haven't seen it.
But I went on a mission to Poland, and Spoko literally means cool in Polish. So like it's cool. That's why we have a Polish. we made up a bunch of like t-shirts that have Spoko on it, and I have all my elementary school kids, they wear them to school all the time, and all their cool friends want to buy shirts, so we started a clothing line. Dad, I sold another shirt today. And then I love to keep the money. But like real estate commission flows into here, house flips, but my Spoko S Corp, it literally is the coolest company to ever work for. It pays for everything. My new truck outside, my trips, my electronics, my meals, entertainment. It contributes to my self-directed retirement program, my HSA. Like it has any benefit ever that you would ever think of for an employee. Like it is a cool company to work for. And part of that is because I'm the only employee, and my spouse, we can do that legally, right? And then any dollar I make from that, whatever stream of income, I set 30% of it over immediately to my right side of the world, my investment side, right? And this is strictly over here for owning more and more real estate. And again, at the very beginning, 10 years ago, it was such a pain in the butt to try to come up with $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to buy our first rental property, right? And then the second one, we had to do seller financing. We had to move into them. You know, we had to go borrow hard money and fix it up and get some equity into it so we could cash out, refinance. Probably the first 5 or 6 rental properties, we had to just creatively figure out how to get rental properties because we just didn't have money. And then eventually it was like the 7th or 8th rental property where we finally had some momentum and time was on our hand. We actually had enough money to put 20% down payment, right? But again, 10 years just buying real estate will make you look really, really, really smart. Right? It makes anybody look smart, even if you buy something crappy 10 years ago, right? So immediately move that 30% over, and as soon as you have enough money in there, go buy something, go buy a rental property. And we're even now that we've owned stuff for 9, 10 years, what we only put $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 into 9, 10 years ago, we now have $350,000 in equity in that same rental property that we're either cash out refinancing that to go buy another property, or we're actually just selling it, 1031ing it into another property, and that's why we start getting into commercial property. So selling a house for $400,000, $500,000, and we're rolling that equity to go buy $1 million or $2 million property.
So explain to me, so you get paid in for doing a service, right? S Corp, you sell a commission, you sell a house, that's ordinary income. Then you send 30% of it into an investment LLC. How do I track that as, what is the service that's being provided? Is the investment LLC technically like a property management type company where I have expenses and I run a P&L off of that as well?
No, reality wise, I just transfer it straight over here, but on taxation wise, that's not a real expense. It basically just shows profit. I pay money on my taxes, and then it shows as a contribution up with the IRS.
Okay.
But physically, bank account, I just transfer it by clicking the buttons.
Right, right.
Yes.
Okay.
And then that doesn't show up as income over here. This is now, I just got money sitting in that account to go buy more rental properties.
Mhm.
Yep. So let's, I want to pause for a second before we get to the next ones. Who owns a rental property here? Who's seen me walk through the 4 main benefits of why we own real estate?
Please do.
Robert?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. So I need everybody to pull out your calculators because I need some help because I don't know these numbers off the top of my head. We're going to walk through one of the rental properties I just purchased in the last 30 days. I actually bought 2 of them, but I bought 2 condos in American Fork, 3-bedroom, brand new, and under contract for like 8 months. I hadn't stepped in it until we did the final walkthrough. And we just closed on it. So what are the 4 main reasons why someone wants to buy an investment property? What are the 4 benefits of a
Depreciation.
what?
Depreciation.
Depreciation. Depreciation. Okay.
Passive income.
Passive income.
I mean, once it's paid off.
So we'll say cash flow.
Cash flow.
Interest. Right off.
Depreciation, I call that tax benefits.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple more in there. Here we got cash flow. So rent minus your expenses, whatever's left over is your cash flow. We got tax benefits. The market goes.
Balance sheet, like whereas it goes over balance sheet.
Appreciation.
Appreciation.
You know,
Appreciation. Okay, one more. So it's gonna be D. Times of net. Debt reduction. Debt reduction. Okay, so one of these condos I put under contract like 8 months ago. Okay, brand new. It was a kind of a newer builder project. Edge Homes, for the most part, has dominated a lot of those condo and townhome projects up there in Utah County, Salt Lake County, and there's a lot of publicity around. So when they roll out a project, like everybody knows about it because they're really great at their marketing and people have jumped on a lot of those projects. This was a builder called Keystone, which is a little less known. They built some townhomes in the area, so when the condo project rolled out, just as nice as a condo project, but maybe less people did it. So I was just kind of watching it. As soon as it came about, I jumped and put 2 under contract. So and then like, after maybe a month or two, the name really got out there, and there's probably even a little bit more competition. But I ended up with upgrades, $260,000. $260,000 was my purchase price. Okay, and 8 months in this year's market, clearly 260 wasn't worth 260 when I bought it, right? So it was already immediately worth another like 60, 70, 80 grand by the time I closed on it. You guys have had that with your clients, but we're not even going to consider that. I walked in with probably close, honestly, to about $100,000 of equity by the time I signed on it. So we won't even count that. We're just going to talk about the 260, just the purchase price that I did. So again, I actually had the money. I saved up. This was my second condo. I actually bought my profit share company. So this was actually just every time I got profit share, I've been saving it in LLC. I bought a property a year and a half ago, and I just had enough profit share saved up that this was going to be my second property in my profit share company that I had 20% put a down payment on and buy. Okay, so 20% down payment would be how much money in the down payment? $52,000. Okay, so 260 minus 52, my loan balance is $208,000, right? And Chase Bank has my loan now. Okay, so appreciation. If I invested this $52,000 in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin goes up 10%, how much is my $52,000 worth? $57,000, right? Because I appreciated the amount I invested, right? If I invest $52,000 in Apple stock and it goes up 10%, how much is my $52,000 worth now? 57,000. Okay. When the real estate market appreciates, does the market appreciate what I put into the home, or does it appreciate the full value of the purchase price?
Full value.
Full value of the purchase price. Okay. So $260,000. $260,000 over the last 50 years, 60 years, 50, 60 years since I've been tracking appreciation. What is the average appreciation across the United States every year? I'm counting up and downs and just screwed down.
9.
4%. So 4% on average has been appreciated. So even as markets go down and up, on average we appreciate 4%. If you actually look at the entire U.S. market, other than the Great Recession, the vast majority of down cycles don't actually depreciate the values of homes. When the market turns, besides the Great Recession, what does that typically mean?
Plateaus. It just
kind of levels out, right? Look at the stats. Look at the stats on depreciation. Other than the Great Recession, which is basically built up on just millions of fraudulent, subprime loans and stuff, which was a catalyst to just drop values, and all the crap that went on in 2003, 4, 5, of just people speculative buying stuff and appraisers in on it, all this sort of crap that we went through. It's the wild, wild west, right? On average, we actually never depreciated the market. Crazy, right? Which people think that it just keeps yo-yoing up and down, well, there's a crash coming. I truly believe that even if the market turns, I don't think we're going to see deflation or depreciation in this marketplace. I don't. I just think it'll chill out for a little bit, let buyers' income goes up, let inventory go down, and then we'll start going up again. The last 12 months, how much has the market gone up?
No, it's like 26% or something like that.
Yeah.
26,
Depending on the
27%.
county, it's like 26, 28%, which is crazy, right? But we don't even use that crazy number, right? So let's even just say 4%. If this home just goes up 4%, someone times 260 by 1.04.
207,100.
Say it again.
207,400.
170,400. Okay. Let's even just say 10%. Maybe a third of what it's gone up. The governor's board, the Ivory Gardner Institute that does a lot of the stats, they think the market's probably going to go up 7 to 10% next year. 2022. You guys know that? You read that report?
Mhm.
So let's even say 260 times by 1.1,
286.
286. Okay. So even though my condo already went up $100,000, let's even just role play conservatively. My 260,000 the next 12 months would be 270,000. Went up 10%, it'd be 260 to 286. You guys follow me? Okay. So someone now, so this is 20,000, and this is, what is 10,000?
That's 10,000, 26,000 for the next.
So this is $10,000 appreciation, and this is $26,000 appreciation. Okay. So I basically made $10,000 by the market going up by 4%. I made $26,000 if the market went up 10%. Right? Big difference. Someone now divide 10 divided by 52. 10,000 divided by 52,000. 19%. Now divide 26,000 divided by 52,000. 50%. So what that means is my ROI, my return on a dollar, just average 60-year history of the United States, me putting a full 20% down payment, just appreciation area of benefit of owning rental property, minimum, I'm gonna 19% ROI on my cash, right? If it goes up 10%, let alone 30% like it's been doing, is a 50% return on my money. Tell me one place that you can put your money right now, conservatively, that you're gonna make 20 to 50% ROI. S&P 500 on average goes up 8%, right? So even if the market doesn't tank, because we're inflated right now, could I bank on 20 to 50% return on my cash in 12 months? No way, right? So what's a loan payment on 2008? 208,000, I mean. It's actually like 1020. Yeah, it's like 1,020. I think I just barely paid that one. I got a 3.375% interest rate. It's insane. What, 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo. What do you think my 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo is renting for right now? We just don't bullshit.
16 to 1,700 in Utah County. I have no
It's
idea.
$1 million per month.
It's $1 million.
1750.
1750. That's really?
1750 is what I got on both of them. And part of that is what have we just gone through the last 3 years? Supply chain issues, contractors, lack of labor. I just built my custom home the last 18 months. I bought the lot 2 years ago, just built it the last 18 months. I moved into it 3 months ago. Love my house. I wanted to murder contractors, subcontract. It just was the most miserable process. Getting people to just show up and do their damn job drove me crazy. And part of that is just all, like my house was probably about $400,000 to $500,000 over the bid from 18 months ago. And a little bit of might have been a choice, but 80% of that was just inflation. And, oh, we don't have this, you gotta have this, you know, all that. So part of it is just construction costs have just been out of whack. When costs get out of whack, who ultimately ends up paying for it?
Is the buyer?
The consumer, right? So part of it is rental properties, who's eventually going to be paying for the rising costs? Renters are, right? When Eric steals things from Walmart, does Walmart just expense that, or does it eventually just get passed on to the people buying the Boys to Men CDs that he stole? Actually, Boys to Men. So part of that is, you know, rents projected. The same economist organizations, they're projecting a 10% increase in rent every year for the next 3 years. It is going to suck to rent the next 3 years. So even just imagine 3 years, this is the lowest rent I'm ever going to get. Lowest rent, I probably bet 3 years, I might be at $2,200 rent for that condo. So again, cash flow, we're talking about right now, right? My HOA fee is $180. We don't pay for, you know, any of the utilities. We don't pay for internet there. Actually, internet is included in HOA there. Property management, 8% of that. I think it's about 105 or something a month. And then the only other things I usually throw in there is future vacancy. Again, do you know what the vacancy rate of rentals right now is across the state? 3.2%. 3.2%. Lowest it's ever been in the history of Utah. 3.2%. So I'm not too worried about vacancy, but I always still save for vacancy. It's a brand new condo, so you think I'm gonna have stuff to fix up? probably not, but I still plan for future maintenance, right? So another probably 110 bucks. 110 bucks is what I'll save. So someone minus 1750, minus 180, minus 1020, minus 105, minus 110. So I don't have to worry about the management of it, future maintenance, vacancy loss, all that's totally taken care of. Even though this is actually income to me, but yeah.
What's that say, 150?
105, 110. 180, 1020, 105, 110. You're my A student.
$335 in cash flow.
335. Yeah, that's better, I thought. That times that by 12. 335 by 12.
4,020.
4,020.
What percentage is that of, what's that?
4,020 divided by 52,000. What's that?
You're at like 70%.
So,
return cash on cash.
7.7 is that what it was?
Yeah, 0.07, so 7.
So 7.7%. I'm at basically an 8% ROI on my cash. I'm at S&P 500 money just with my cash flow, which again is only going to get better the next several years, right? So debt reduction. So we know my payment is 1,020. How much of my payment is going to principal? How much is going to interest? All of it's interest of state banks. What do you think? Maybe 150 bucks. I'm in the first couple of years of my amortization. Again, it's only going to get better. But 100, let's say 150 bucks, just worst case scenario right now, right? 150 bucks times by 12, it's 2,000 bucks. What's 2,000 divided by 52,000? 3.8%. Okay, 3.8%. So every year, my reduction of my loan amount is going down, right? And it's only going to get better. So again, this is the worst case scenario. First year amortization. Hopefully, in 3, 4, 5 years, it's more like $400 or $500 my payments going towards principal, right? But already I'm at 3.8% ROI of my cash, right? And even when you start owning a bunch of stuff, even my commercial property, like my 3 commercial buildings, man, this year we'll probably have our loans paid down $500,000–600,000. I basically just had $500,000–600,000 of core savings account for renters paying down my loans. Crazy, crazy. What are the tax benefits of owning a rental property? It's a depreciation.
Expenses, like all your write-offs, all your write-offs.
All my write-offs. Yeah, it's like mileage, go back and forth, anything to do with property where you know is expensive, but a lot of times it is just the depreciation. You can explain how depreciation on the rental property works.
27.5 years. Minus the land cost. Whatever your land costs were divided by.
Yeah, and that's like cheap because it's called out, right? So normally depreciation, the standard when you buy a rental property, this is the gift of the IRS gods. We are buying a rental property that's worth $260,000. $260,000 is appreciating asset, but the IRS is telling me that we can write off 100% of the value of that property and actually make up a fake expense on my set of books, so I'm not actually having to pay taxes on any money that's offsetting, right? So like in my truck, right? Like I just brought my truck off in my business. I bought my truck, it's 85,000 bucks. I'm gonna get an $85,000 deduction in my truck, but my truck every year goes down the back, goes down the back, goes down the back, right? So it's actually depreciating, which makes sense. But real estate's appreciating, but they're also allowing me to depreciate? What? Why would they do that, right? And I didn't even understand how awesome some of these things were until Argentina for me, to be honest. Like right here, appreciation, right? But actually leveraging it by getting a down payment. I told you guys yesterday, 95% of deals down in Argentina are cash transactions. They do not have a mortgage market. Like when I told them we had 30-year fixed rate mortgages at 3, 4, 5% up here, they about passed out. They're like, what? Why would a bank give you 95% loan to buy a house? Because like all they do is just cash transactions. because they don't have a stable banking system down there. So the thought of them actually even just putting a down payment down, owning a rental property, and then it going up in value, and the return, the appreciation, the cash on cash return of that is just in mind blowing. That they're just like, how can I give you $1 million? You put it on a suitcase. So the average depreciation of a rental property, the straight line depreciation method, which is the standard IRS depreciation method, is you can take that purchase price and basically divide it by 27.5 years, and that's the amount of depreciation expense that you get every single year. So basically divide 260,000, divide by 27.5%. $9,000. So $9,500. So what that means is we're depreciating about $9,500 that I add into my QuickBooks. My accountant adds it into my QuickBooks that basically is a fake expense that we're depreciating my rental property. So actually I make $4,000, right, real money, but then I add back this $9,500 expense. My tax set of books on my rental property actually shows that I'm losing $5,500 per year on that rental property. Does that make sense?
No, but yeah.
Where am I?
That's crazy. That's just crazy.
And the part of it is so that deduction for me, that $9,500 deduction for me, what that does is it shows as a loss that then comes over to my left side of the world. So when I make $9,500 in commission, and I took a $9,500 loss over here on my tax return, I just made $0, right? Okay. So part of that is say average, you know, even 30% tax rate, which is 25% or 24% federal, and let's say 6% for the state. So times by 30%, what's 9,500 times by 0.3?
2850.
2850. Okay. Now times that, divide that by 52,000. 2850 divided by 52,000.
5.4%.
5.4%. So 5.4% cash on cash return of my down payment strictly through my tax benefits and depreciation. Who knows what cost segregation or accelerated depreciation is? You want to try to explain it?
So accelerated depreciation or cost segregation is where you take the individual items inside of the property and you depreciate them individually versus doing depreciation this way, where they take the value of the house as a whole, right? So they 260,000 divided up over 25 or 27 years. This is where they do it all in a single shot, right? And they do each individual item in the house. So if there's 2 kitchens, you get depreciation for those 2 kitchens, plus you get it for several other items. There's some landscaping depreciation, there's some other things, but that way you're depreciating all of it instead of over the course of time, like 27 years, you're doing it all within a single year. Is that right?
Yeah, basically, instead of us taking $9,500 every year consistently for 27.5 years, which is getting to that full purchase price, we're just speeding it up and accelerating the depreciation into year 1. Okay, so it's basically taking more of this depreciation and trying to get a bigger depreciation number in year 1 to get a bigger tax deduction, right? So a lot of times you see this in commercial real estate, but I didn't know this until about 2 years ago that you can do it on individual single-family condo townhome rental properties. So part of where I learned this is when we built our Orem Westfield KW building. It was a $6 million building, everything to go totally build it. We did accelerated depreciation on it. You basically pay this company that accelerates the depreciation, does this big long report. They have to come look at the property, blah, blah, blah. And then they kick out this report that then you hand to your accountant that then files a tax return. Instead of straight line, they accelerate the depreciation. So out of that $6 million building, and commercial buildings, instead of 27.5 years, it's like 35 years, 36 years, something like that. So 6 million divided by 30 something years, it basically would have been like $100,000 that we would have had as a depreciation expense every year from that $6 million building, which start to be bigger numbers, which are cool. But because we accelerated it at a 6 million in year 1, we took a $1.5 million deduction. So in that year, I owned half that building, so I took a $750,000 loss on my real estate investment side that directly came over and offset $750,000 I made on my left side of my loan. So instead of paying $250,000 of tax that year, I paid $0 in tax. Legally, totally legit.
So why would someone opt to do that, other than obviously to offset like an income? But is that because, so like years moving past, you obviously don't have that depreciation anymore to draw from? So is that counting on the fact that you'll do other investing, so you'll take write off somewhere else, or you just had a bigger year that year, so you were trying to?
Yeah, personally, it's because I made a bunch of money.
Okay.
Instead of paying the IRS that money, I'd rather take that $250,000 and go put it down on more down payments on real estate, right? And this isn't like this conspiracy theory. Like some of the reports out there when rich people don't pay a lot of tax and they like want to, crucify them in the public. The whole tax legal system is set up 3 different ways, right? There's low income earners, there's middle income earners, and there's high income earners. Low income earners will never pay tax. All the programs are set up to help them, right? And give them money, right? They'll never contribute to taxation in society, right? Middle class, for the most part, bear the tax burden for all 3 tax brackets. Because high income earners, people that are making a ton of money, the government are making laws telling them where they should be spending their money. So even though I didn't pay tax because of that building, I just built a $6 million building. You know how many people I employed building that building? You know how many people I employed to maintain that building? You know how many people I employed inside of that building? Like the amount of taxation that the government's getting from everything that I just put into a 25,000 square foot building, they absolutely would way rather have that long term than just immediately taking my money. Because again, I'm just going to take that $250,000. I'm going to go buy a boat. I'm going to go build another building. And I'm spurring the economy, which is really what the government wants, right? Like Elon Musk, all right, he's paying tax now, he's selling his stock, but he only paid 1%, 2%. Do you know how many damn people he's helping by owning a bunch of businesses? Hundreds of thousands of people, right? So same thing. So I actually am I'm doing it for my 2021 tax return. I already set my stuff to depreciate this condo, accelerated it. And on average, it's about $1,000 to do a rental property, to have them do the report, to send to my accountant to speed up my depreciation. So on average, it ends up being, it's different in every property, but it ends up being about 25% of the value of the property that I'm getting in year 1 by speeding it up. So someone times 260,000 times by 0.25. What's a quarter of my home? 25% of 260,000. 65,000. Okay, times that by 0.3. 19.5. Divide 19.5 by 52,000.
Come back to what's 0.3 again?
My tax bracket, federal and state.
Oh.
So it's 19,500 divided by 52,000.
0.375.
So 37.5. So let's add up the conservative ones for me, okay? So get your calculator, add up 19% plus 7.7%, 19 plus 7.7 plus 3.8 plus 5.4. 19 plus 7.7 plus 3.8 plus 5.4. 35.9. Okay, now add up the bigger ones. 50 plus 7.7 plus 3.8 plus 37.5. 50 plus 7 plus the 3.8 plus the 37.5.
31.1, I think.
Yeah. What'd you get? 99 point.
That's it.
99%. So we did worst case ever in all of these, and I'm still going to have a 35, 36% ROI return on my money. If the market appreciates exactly how it's going to over the last 60 years, 4%, the lowest cash flow I'm ever going to have at that property, debt reduction at the worst amortization schedule ever, and just straight line depreciating it gave me a 35.9% return on money. Okay, even not counting the extra $100 grand I have in equity, right? 50% if market goes up 10%, which I do believe it will. 7.7, 3.8, and I actually am doing the accelerated depreciation on this. I have 100% return on my money. Tell me where in the world can you invest 50 grand and get 100% return on your money? So let alone 5, 6, 7 years from now, as my equity grows in that, what do you think I'm gonna do? I'm either gonna choose to sell it, roll it up from a $500,000 condo to a $2 million building, it's got enough equity into it, or I'm just gonna cash out some of this equity and then go throw on another down payment. So part of that is my $50,000 down payment is now gonna turn into 2 rental properties, turn into 4 rental properties. So if you actually future pace this on a spreadsheet, the numbers just are infinite returns.
So going back and thinking bigger, since I haven't done that lately, but thinking bigger on this, now that you know that you've made, say, $100,000 in equity on this particular property. For you, Johnny, when does that calculate, like you said, when do I sell that and push it in a 1031 to go buy something else or take the equity? I mean, when do you start that next process for this particular rental?
Yeah, part of it is, that's a variable question for sure. Part of it is just once I have a bunch of equity in that property, I have to just determine, is that equity in that property getting me a great return still 5 years from now, or would it make sense to reposition that equity to get a higher return? So my Provo house that we bought, 10 years ago, that we literally hard moneyed it, put some sweat equity into it, cash out refinance, we built 20% equity into it. So I had $0 into that rental property. We rented it out for $1,300, $1,400 for years with property managers doing it. I just forgot about the house. I honestly just forgot about the house for years, right? But then again, now that we're kind of relooking at all rental properties, that was one that we legit had $350,000 of equity sitting in that property. So we owed like, 100 grand and it was worth 450-ish. And I'm like, all right, well, our rents aren't totally up there, but we're only probably getting about $4,000 a year cash flow on that. We've already depreciated a bunch, we've got a good loan on it, but $4,000 return for $350,000 a year, is that a great investment? I'm like, we probably need to start looking at repositioning it. So that's one that we actually just sold, 1031 it into a brand new fourplex. So it was $1 million fourplex. We sold that, rolled that in. We actually cashed out a little bit of money on refinance first. I think we cashed out like 100 grand and then rolled like 200 and something thousand dollars and 20% down payment of that $1 million property. And now each one of those fourplexes rents for like $1,600, $1,700. So now we're getting more like $4 grand-ish, a month, whatever. So it's just, you got to relook at those.
That question that he just asked is exactly the conversation that you have with your investors, which is why it's so much fun. Like when you take a look at their portfolio, you ask them what they own, and when you, how long you owned them, just ask them qualified questions, and then when you get their numbers, you run the numbers, and then you can see like the challenge for you is you live in Utah County, where most everyone likes to pay things off because it feels good, and or their social influence wants them to pay everything off. And so there's a little bit of a battle when you talk to investors about, having debt, because they have been programmed not to have debt. But when you look at their properties, I mean, that was probably the best thing I ever learned from my first broker, was learning how to deal with investments and to be able to side by side. So that when you're speaking to a seller, you can actually show them, this one's actually not making you any more money, which is what he just explained to you. But that's the exact same approach you would take to your clients. It's super cool. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, you're right,
Yeah, we got into development a little bit, but we've actually 1031 about another, because at one point we had 15-ish rentals, and we, traded some up for others, but we actually sold a couple of 1031 into a development that we're doing. That it's a bigger development, but basically that $1.5 million that we cashed out of like 3 or 4 of our rentals is basically going to go into building a down payment for apartment complex. So we're going to own probably 30 to 50% of an apartment complex with just $1.5 million that came with rental properties that probably was only maybe $10,000, $15,000 10 years ago. That's going to turn into 250 units that will probably net cash flow 400 grand a year us to that. And part of it's just monopoly, right? And that's why I'm so serious about this, is because I've learned a lot for sure. But again, playing this game 10 years ago is what positioned me to go look like I'm cooler than I am, right? And that's really what it is. Just when we sold a house, made a $5,000 commission, $1,500 went over into our investment in real estate. So as soon as we had a little bit of money and could find a property, we bought one, And that's why if you're not playing this game, you're going to fast forward 10 years from now, and I'm going to be building Marriott hotels and all sorts of stuff, and you're going to be like, oh, it would be nice to own a rental property, right? You have to get started. You have to get started. Okay, anything else on that? I'll show you my whole org chart, kind of how it's.
There's pizza over there if you want to
Yeah,
take
pizza.
5.
You guys want to take a 5-minute break and grab some pizza?
Yeah, let's do it. Jimmy John's from yesterday was in the fridge all night, just so you know. I'm giving you fair warning.
Hey, Robert, you have conversations with your
It retains. But I would highly encourage you to use this as a staple component of an investor buyer consultation. Like I rarely don't do this with my investors. We always usually run this through, so. Cool. Again, just paying yourself first. Like there's two kinds of capital. There's human capital, you work for money, cash flow, capital assets, which is your money working for them, all flows into your cash flow. There's only 4 things you can do. You can spend it, you can donate it, you can save it, you can invest it. I even consider these 2 things kind of one, just because once you get to a point that you have enough savings, just every dollar is investing after that, right? The other thing that I like to say at this point is, you know, because of this, like, and how, you know, I've done a lot of other investing. I've invested in the crypto, I've invested in financial products, invested into the cure for diabetes that's not going well. I'm always looking for investments, but it's been so hard for me when I run these numbers on my real investments to ever think that I should invest in anything else. Like I do believe in diversification. So why I'm so active in the market and I see things and I can talk to agents and all that, like, it's just hard for me to think that I'll ever get a better return unless it's like some crazy invention, you know? And I think later in life, when I start pulling out my time from the real estate industry, it'll probably be more managed kind of asset type of stuff. But it's, you know, even when financial planners come and pitch stuff to me, and I even just talk them through this and show them, you know, how my net worth's grown over the year, like, tell me how you can beat that. They're like, okay, we'll call you in a couple of years, you know? So part of that is, you know what, Warren Buffett's net worth has grown over the years. What average cash on or ROI he's had over his net worth? He's one of the richest people in the country still, kind of the OG investor, but what is his portfolio increased every year? Yes. 22%. Yep, 22%. And that's where he went from 0 to $80 billion in a lifetime, right? Normally that's not possible, but he's just had a very consistent, solid return. And it's still fluctuated, but on average it's 22%. And that's why they say 8%, the S&P is still an incredible return over a 50-year period. He's just outpaced the market tremendously because he just buys great businesses, gets in business with great people, he's smart as he can be, right? But that's why when I run the numbers on this, 35%, little when you add in like rolling properties up and stuff like that, I truly, truly believe that your net worth can 10x every 10 years. So one of my goals was to be a millionaire by 30, and I hit that. So I was a millionaire by 30, a net worth of plus of $1 million. Now I'm 37, I absolutely believe I can hit 10 million by the time I'm 40. And by the time 40 to 50, I absolutely believe I can get to 100 million and then $1 billion, right? And part of that is I think I can probably outpace that, but I think that is probably pretty conservative if I'm very engaged in this money, right? But again, it ends up only being about a 22, 23% return or ROI on your portfolio every year to get that doubling effect or that 10x effect every 10 years. So part of it is, even if you feel like you're late to the game, just imagine, all right, like how fast do you need to get your net worth up to $500 or $1 million, and then just picture a decade, you could have $10 million, you know? And it just depends on what your big why is and what passive income goals, when you want to step back or whatever, you know. But part of it is, for me, is when I made this commitment 10 years ago, I'm going to pay 30% over here. I absolutely have to understand this is retirement. Every dime that comes over here, I will never, ever, 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 ever touch it, right? The mistake I see is people start the journey, they buy a rental, all of a sudden they slow down at work, they want to take a couple months off, and they sell a rental, and that rental income just now dumps into their house. They go buy a boat or a house or whatever, right? You just have to commit. And I think in a 20-year period, I think you can make $100 million net worth by just doing this. Even a mediocre income of 100 grand. Like if you just consistently make 100, 150 grand, but then commit to this, just run it on a spreadsheet. It's crazy. All right, and then again, have a written wealth plan. Okay. Everybody will be a millionaire sometime. Some will just be dead before they get to experience it. Some are on a 10-year plan, some are on a 30-year plan. If you leave your money in a bank account, it will eventually hit $1 million. If you put $1 into a savings account, making 0.01%, eventually it will hit $1 million. But eventually, in that path, it'll probably just take 500 years and you'll be dead and you'll never be able to enjoy being a millionaire, right? So just what is the year, how many years is your millionaire plan, okay? And you just have to calculate it. The path is in the math. Everything has math attached to it. Everything great, right? So just figure out how many year plan that you want to be on to be that millionaire, or that 10, or whatever it is. And when I say written wealth building plan, I'm talking about two things. We're closing the books for 2021. You've got to have a personal budget and you've got to have a balance sheet. Who in here has a personal budget? Basically, this is your income. You made all this money, all the expenses, and what was your net income as a person, right? Who's done that this year? Okay. At a minimum, you need to be historical. You at least need to be able to track how much money you made and where it went, right? And that's why even simply, if you're not tracking your expenses, you don't know how much it's disappeared, right? So the funniest thing happens every first of the year is when we close our books as market centers, and then we start sending our 1099s out to the agents. Do you know how many complaint calls that we get that they think it's inaccurate because it's higher than they thought it was? At least 30, 40 per market center. Do you know how many calls we get complaining that they think it's lower? None. It's just, have you ever had that shell shock? You get your 1099, you're like, holy shit, I made that much money? Where did it go, right? So at a minimum, you just got to know what your income is and where did it go? Did you spend it? Did you invest it? Or did you give it away, right? What's your net income? Minimum. And start getting that organized so you can do it on a monthly basis. I run my personal P&L for all my streams of income, how much money I spent, how much I invested, how much I gave away, and what my net income every month is, right? My net income, I just then also pay that to my investment world. Then the net, your balance sheet. Who has a balance sheet? Who right now can show me a balance sheet if I asked you to? Two people? So what's a balance sheet? Assets and liabilities, yeah. Anything that has value. Even if you have a negative net worth, you need to have a balance sheet. Put the money or lack of money in your account, what's your car worth, what's your house worth, what's whatever, right? What do you owe on stuff? Mortgages, liabilities, car loans, credit cards, whatever, student loans, and then what's your net worth, okay? I did that again 10 years ago. I think a lot of people understand budget and do budget more than they do balance sheet. And they both have value in the decisions that you make. A lot of times, even if you have the money and you look at the effects that it could have on your balance sheet, it starts making you second guess the decisions that you make. Some might be better balance sheet ideas than they are personal, but it just helps give you the right data. Everybody raise your right hand. Say aye and say your name.
I Robert.
Promise and commit
Promise to commit.
to finalizing my 2021 balance sheet and personal budget.
Finalizing my 2021 balance sheet for the budget.
Or I owe Johnny
Or I got
$1 million.
There you go. Tickets to a Cowboys game.
Yeah, gotta be serious, okay? Can money make you happier? Talk a lot about money.
Buy me a boat.
Yeah. It's like you buy a truck.
How to buy happiness? Spend it on others, spend it on experiences, and buy back your time. What's that? He's like, I hate people that say money can't buy happiness. He's like, have you ever seen a sad person on a wave runner? It's like, he's like, try to frown on a wave runner. Like, go through the motion of frowning. And then the last one for me is streams of income are the secret to wealth building, right? So even you starting with just your real estate sales income, start to save it, you're instantly creating another stream of income by buying a rental property. But right here in our organization, profit share can be a stream of income. Strategic alliances are going to start being opportunities. You know, that's where even when I looked at the market center, like I want to be the best agent I can, so I can then go and actually earn an opportunity to own a piece of the market center, right? Like it's not a coincidence that our most active, producing, profitable, contributory, in culture people end up investors in our market center, right? So that became a stream of income. And I was just doing the right things, and then Argentina opportunity fell in my lap. Like I just am open for opportunities because I have a goal of having a ton of streams of income, right? And just like she said, even when I carve off a new stream of income, I try to even not dump that into my personal living lifestyle. I actually just redirect it to creating another opportunity, Most of my investments was paid out of another stream of income, right? And again, if you just do that for 10 years, and just live great financial principles, you're done. You totally could retire in a 10-year period. Where does your money come from? You should know. This is part of undoing that personal budget. So all the money that you spend every month is 100% of that coming from you having to swap your time to earn that money. Or do you have some of those passive income streams, right? So even me, when I do my personal budget, I actually divide my income into 2 categories. What am I actually, my time's requiring me to receive that income, and what truly is passive for me? And then I just run a percent of my income. What percent of my income every year is coming from my time versus my money earning money, okay? And then I just set goals every year. I want to go from 10 to 20 or 20 to 30 or 50 to 80 or whatever it is. And again, all of your goals should be, I have enough net worth and I have enough passive income coming in that 100% supports you without you ever having to show up to work. Is that your guys' goal? Okay. And then I'm fascinated by people that have streams of income because it's the same mindset. So this is one I took a screenshot of at a family reunion once. This is the McKissicks. You probably know Jim and Linda McKissick. They're kind of poster people in our organization, but they have always had a real estate sales team called the McKissick Group. Crush it. They've actually built the business, learned to step out of it. They net $1 million a year on their real estate team. They actually have another commercial team that they own and kind of have stepped out of for the most part. They own 2 market centers. They own 2 market centers, the Flower Mound and the Denton, Texas. And then they have ownership, the majority ownerships in the Ohio Valley, and they have a minority investment in the Florida region, which is awesome. They do a bunch of developments. Which is a development company that they've kind of built, which in turn also they end up holding some and they end up selling some, or they list some with their real estate team. They have a flipping company that they'll do 3 to 5 per month. Their holding company. Have you ever read the book Hold? It's one of our curriculum books in Keller Williams. They were the co-authors of it. Like back when they wrote that, it was 10 years ago, they owned like 150 residential rental properties. So I can't imagine what they own now after another 10-year period. But you can see their residential rental properties, you know, the Farm Best, they own a bunch of vacation stuff. Their commercial buildings, they own a bunch of commercial buildings. This is a long time ago still. Their profit share, that's kind of what they get a lot of publicity at. They make $1.5 million just in their profit share company. She's actually the person, the story about me saving my profit share. We took her to dinner when they came to do the book tour in 2012 or something. That book came out forever ago. We took her to the, what's the fancy restaurant in Temple Square? The Roof. We thought it'd be a good Utah experience. But she's the one that told me that she treats her profit share like a company. And part of that, her profit share business, she set up an LLC, all their profit share dumps into it, and then they actually just treat it like a business. And if he hasn't even told you yet, but in 35 states right now, we have free real estate school. We just launched another thing that I didn't talk about is we launched the K-Score, the KW School of Real Estate. They partnered up with Kaplan, basically in 35 states that have that curriculum. And now those states are able to offer free real estate school for anybody that wants to get into real estate school. It just ends up being basically a monthly fee that the market center bears. It's like a $500 fee for unlimited registration for that market center to enroll as many people who want to do real estate school. There's one market center in 48 hours and enrolled 200 people. Like it's a big growth strategy, a disruptive growth strategy for KW. And because we don't have Kaplan Real Estate School in here, there's 15 states that they're figuring out something else, but they've already got a bunch of different contracts that they're working through that would be able to roll the other states' schools into that. So they're projecting somewhere around Q1, Q2. But just imagine if you as an agent had, you know, a little flyer out there that says, hey, I can get you for real estate school, call me. Right? I think that could potentially be one of the biggest profit share tree building opportunities in the lifetime of profit share. So I'm actually even thinking my profit share business, that profit share, now I own a couple of rental properties in there that's dumping some money into it. This is the first time I've actually considered hiring a full-time employee in that business just to recruit people into real estate school. So I end up sponsoring them. Crazy.
What's her name again?
Linda McKissick. Yeah. So her husband's Jim, but she's way cooler than Jim.
What's their son's name? He does a lot of this.
Press.
Press. He does a lot of stuff.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, he's super cool, but he's also, it's hard for me because he's a little rich kid, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So. And then anyways, the intellectual properties. He's nice, he's nice. Intellectual properties, they've gone bonkers on this too. They've got a lot of training, speaking engagement training, but they make millions and millions of dollars a year. But again, it's just the width of streams of income. And if you've never visited this, I learned about this a couple of years ago when I was down at an event, but Keller Capital is Gary Keller's mother company, which they have real estate holdings, but they also acquire a ton of businesses and start ventures and all sorts of stuff like, but they have a little website, and this is just some of the businesses that he owns. He owns Alamo Draft House, which is a multi-chain movie theater stuff. He owns hotel chain. I don't even know what that is. Clearly Keller Williams is just one piece of his, S Corp portfolio. Milk and Honey is a chain of like spas and salons or something. He was one of the original investors in Stance socks. So if you wear Stance socks or underwear, which are on my feet right now, he bought Tenant Cloud, which is a property management software company that they're trying to figure out how to integrate into our platform. But just constantly, just more things will pop up here. I'm like, man, he is just doing so much stuff. And again, this is what my life started with, as I simply had my Spoko S Corp, and then I just created a Spoko LLC on my right side, and both of those are owned by my revocable family trust. So when I die, it just will all roll into there, so we don't have to go through probate or any of those things, right? And just after about 10 years-ish, this is what mine looks like right now. So just like I've been explaining, my S Corp's right here. Clearly I make some money from Kinnebee, Utah. Until we have, we launched a little bit of a Utah real estate school here until we get our free one. But Argentina, which is owned in RS Global LLC, that income flows into my company. Or a real estate group flows into there. This is our title company venture, our insurance venture, our mortgage venture. This clearly is my team, Red Sign LLC. These are some of the developments that we're doing. Eventually, I want a full-fledged development company. I think I'd love to own a law firm or accounting firm because it just fits into what we do so much. Eventually, training and coaching will become a stream of income for me. And then my right side, this is where all the assets are held. This is my partnership with Clay, because a lot of our early investing we did in Red Sign Investments, because we had Red Sign team and Red Sign Investments. So we own, I don't know, 15 rental properties in there, but this is where we've dumped a bunch of money into those commercial buildings. So we've got the Orem one that Keller Williams rents. We've got the South Jordan office building that we own. We just built another one with Boyd Brown. Sojo is another South Jordan building that we've got like a goat haircutting place, a salon, a chicken food place. I haven't seen what it is, but we're building another office building, Draper, and then Salem hopefully turns into apartments and storage units. We might even end up owning a gas station, which is weird. You just learn weird things, and like Maverick, right? I love Maverick. That's probably my preference gas station, but there's a few that are competing, but I'm pushing for Maverick because I just want to go there. But Maverick actually only owns 50% of the buildings. The other 50%, private investment groups own it, and the Maverick leases from it. Or there's even other scenarios which we're actually looking into that they do what's called a ground lease. So we actually own the land, they build the building, and they basically just pay us a flat. It's probably gonna be like $12,000 to $15,000 a month, with us not even touching the ground. They build the building on it, they own the building, but we own the ground, and they just pay us 15 grand a month.
My great grandpa started in Maverick.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's cool. Huh.
You'd think I'd be rich. but-
Yeah, what the heck, where's your family? And clearly my profit share dumps into this LLC, and then I have a couple rentals in there. This is named after my wife, and a couple rentals in there, a couple rentals in there. This is one just because I'm forcing my brothers to invest. So we started, because we're all J names with our last name, so we started Triple JC. And then this Lake City Investments, guys, this is gonna be the biggest. That's the diabetes cure. So that's where that one is. Yep. And again, we'll probably do a full lesson, a couple wealth building classes on this, but I self-directed my retirement program, and it has just been awesome. Because again, any of you that have IRAs, Roth, traditional IRAs, some of you might even have 401ks with spouses or former work or whatever, where is that money being invested at? The financial world, right? It's probably in stocks, mutual funds, bonds, it's probably just, hey, I'm gonna retire in 2045, so they just dump it into like some sort of mutual fund type of product. And if you actually look into how much you're making on it, we've been in the best, financial market the last 10 years ever, but you've probably been making 4, 5, 6, 7% a year. So just imagine if you could take the money inside of a retirement vehicle and then run it through these returns, your retirement vehicle alone, even just putting $5,000-$10,000 in it alone would help you retire. So I self-directed mine after, I put 12 grand a year in for like 4 years. So it was about $48,000. And after 4 years having it with my financial planner, I pulled up my statement because it was just on automatic for me. I pulled up my statement and my balance of my 48 grand that I put in, guess what it was? $50,000. I made 2 grand in 4 years of investing in the mutual fund or whatever they put in. I'm like, holy shit. So part of it is I'm like, screw this. And when I started learning about self-directing my retirement, A, I wanted to be able to control where I was invested. And then B, I wanted to be able to get more money into my retirement vehicle. And that's part of why I tell you to structure it with your own S Corp that only you own. So eventually I actually had my S Corp start a 401k that I coincidentally am the only employee there. So we actually created a solo 401k, and I can put up to $50,000 a year into my solo 401k. And then my solo 401k basically just, it could go out and invest in the Apple stock. It can go invest in mutual funds. I'm just now the custodian of my retirement program. But instead of buying some shares of Apple stock, I just coincidentally bought 100% of the ownership of an LLC. So it now owns 100% of this company that I am the manager of. So I don't own this LLC, my retirement program knows I'm the manager of my LLC, so I can actually just control where is it's invested. So I went from $50,000 in there 3 years ago to it's now up to $250,000 in my
Are
self-directed.
you able to, this might be against the rules, because I don't know much about, I don't know much about, are one of your businesses able to match?
That's what the 50 is.
Yeah,
Okay,
so,
that's what that is.
so part of the 54,000, 19,000 of it's considered an employee contribution.
Okay.
And then you can match 25% of their wages. So the salary that I pay myself from the S Corp, I just pay, right now I'm only running like a $5,000 a month salary from there because I write off a bunch of other stuff. So $60,000 times 25% is $15,000. 15 plus 19, even 34,000 is very easy to get to by just running a $5 grand a month salary.
And you can do your kids and those IRAs, self-direct them, and then max them 6,000 a year,
Yeah.
run the same pattern. And your kids also have retirements built out throughout.
Yeah, because I pay my kids from my S Corp as well to vacuum my office or scan some receipts or whatever. I pay them out of my S Corp into this family management fund, and then I contribute from the family management to the Roth IRAs.
Okay.
And then it's just starting. I
How
don't
do
tell
you
them
know if you
that.
can self-direct your 401k?
What'd you say?
How do you know if you can? Like, because we have a 401k, but it's through the state. I don't know if it's.
Who's the employer? Like,
Um,
does your spouse work for the state or something?
uh-huh.
And it's your spouse's retirement program. So if he's working for the state and they're contributing to it stuff, you just have to leave his there. But do you work for the state?
No, but what if it's a retirement? He also has a retirement.
Yeah, then you just leave him alone. You would just create you one. So now your S Corp would just create a solo 401k for just you. And then if he ever retired or quit or whatever, you could then create one for him. But if he's already got one going on, I would just focus on you.
Okay.
Yep. And there's a bunch of our agents that do that. Their spouse provides the health insurance, has a retirement program, so great. Now we're just running all the planning through the agent side of it. You're like double dipping to some degree. Yeah. Yeah, so even when I go do developments, like this 537 Denver LLC, that's where we tore 3 houses down, built 11 like luxury townhomes downtown Salt Lake. We had to fund, I don't know, like 800 grand or something like that. So me and a couple partners, like we put in some money personally, we put in some money from Red Side Investments. I put in some money for my self-directed retirement program, which I just had some cash sitting there after I moved it all over. And once we built those townhomes after like 12 months, it was legit about a 50% cash return for us. So 800 grand turned into like 1.6 million. I put like 50 grand from my 401k into it. And then I got 50 grand and 50 grand back. So it literally doubled it in. Because again, I can control where the money's going versus it being dumped into Apple stock, and then all the hedge fund managers are buying yachts from the money they make on the assets, right? But I actually did the same thing with my agency. I don't know if you knew that. Health savings account. So health savings account, you just have to have a high deductible health insurance plan. So if you're generally healthy, it's good to have a higher deductible. So you just pay for any doctor visits, and then it's more catastrophic. But you can actually get a health savings account which you can contribute up to $7,200 a year into a health savings account, and you get a debit card. So when you have a health expense, you can just swipe it. So I actually did that for a couple of years. I put that health savings account money in, and anytime we needed an expense, I would just swipe it. But as my income kind of gone up, and I heard this tip that actually can be self-directed and turn into a retirement program for you. I actually kept contributing to it for the last 4 years, and I don't actually use it for medical expenses. I actually just end up paying doctor visits out of my own personal account, but I'm still actually dumping the money in my HSA. And then I actually self-directed that same exact process. I now have a SPOCO HSA LLC that has $50,000, $60,000 in it now that basically I can invest. And my goal with that is basically the average retiree is going to spend like $250,000 in retirement on medical expenses, nursing homes, medications, that type of thing. So my goal is, I'm like, I just want that to fully fund anything with my health later in life. And if you actually end up having excess money in it, you can just draw on retirement income, just like a 401k.
Yeah, you roll that every year, so that's never, you don't have to spend that one.
Yeah.
I don't do that either. Jeez.
Cool. And then, so that's it. Those are the top 10 empire building tips that I've learned, mostly from Gary Keller. How was that?
That's awesome.
Johnny, this almost sounds like a full-time job. How do you leverage this for part of this?
You've got to get a great accountant. You've got to get a pretty good attorney. But again, what I've learned is, even as I've upgraded those professionals, like nobody cares about your stuff like you care about it. Nobody cares about your rental property, nobody cares about your money, nobody cares about your investment. So I just, I think that was just even 5-10 years ago, I committed to being not only a student of real estate, but a student of money, right? And there's even just a couple training organizations, a couple books, that just have been invaluable to me, and some are even just Utah. I don't know if you know, like Mark Kohler or Matt Sorensen, those guys. They own an accounting and a law firm. And I don't actually use them for legal or accounting, but they just have a training company too that I've learned a ton of this stuff from. But you just have to be focused on it. Again, you want to make money, you got to become a master of it.
Mark Kohler is awesome, she says.
Yeah, Mark Kohler, Matt Sorensen. I listen to podcasts, like when I work out. So I listen to music, I listen to podcasts, Is that funny?
It's like your pump up.
Taxes.
What books would you recommend?
So one of the best ones that's like more technical like this is the Tax and Legal Playbook from those guys. Tax and Legal Playbook. Write that down.
I walk around the gym sometimes and wonder what other people are listening to, because I'm like, oh, I bet it's nothing you would even get. And it's not.
Write down Tax and Legal Playbook.
Tax and Legal Playbook's one. The other book that they wrote is called the Self-Directed IRA Handbook. So that'll teach you all about self-directed retirement programs. But I can just start there and even subscribe to their YouTube channel, their podcast. They've got a bunch of great stuff.
What was it?
Self-directed IRA Handbook.
What were their names again, please?
Mark Kohler, Kohler, Mark Kohler, and then Matt Sorensen with one T, Matt. I don't know why.
I think they have an office in Cedar City, right?
Yep, they do. Yep.
They
I think
work
their
a lot-
accounting firm is kind of based out of Cedar, but
And then Vegas, right? I think they have a lot of
I
stuff.
think they have
there.
Phoenix and California. They're kind of all over. They jump states too for random tax loopholes, I think. Except California, we never want business in California.
Stay on there.
Okay, you guys got another 5-10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean 2 hours. So these are just a couple set of questions, and you don't have to write them down, so I'll send them the slides. You can kind of just think about them as we're going through them. But Gary went through these with us, and these are 2 sets of questions that Gary Keller asks himself at the end of the year. There's wealth questions, and then there's life questions. And us being in this week right before the year, I think it's perfect timing. So I'm going to challenge you once you still get write them down, but once you get these emailed to you, I would challenge you to actually just take 45 minutes and answer these questions for yourself, okay? So the first one is, these are the wealth questions, the 5 wealth questions. The first one is, what does money mean to you? What does money mean to you? What does money mean to you? Think about it. And sometimes I go back and forth. Like, man, money is the most important thing on this planet right now. Like, it controls everything. It is such a valuable resource. And then other times I'm like, what is money? It's just like this made up like societal agreement of us just like swapping digits across, right? Like it's just, it's so weird how when you think about what does money mean to you, right? Number two is why do you want it? Why do you want money? We just talked some high level investing stuff, but why do you want it? For me, money represents freedom to me. Money represents opportunity for me. Freedom represents leverage, time, I think at the beginning of my journey, money meant, upgrading my lifestyle, but I think, I'm not the go buy a big yacht type person, like just even a decent lifestyle I'm happy with. But to me, it's about time. It's about being able to spend my time with the people or on what I want, but it's also opportunity. When things come, that's important to me. And it's also like help. There's a lot of people out there that maybe had a totally different set of circumstances, that being generous and being able to have some assets to go help people is what I want. Number three is how much money do you have? How much income do you have and how much net worth do you have? We talked about this. How much do you have? You don't know minimum how much you made, how much was invested, how much you spent, and just see what your net worth is. Number four is what do you do with your money? If you don't know how to answer this already, most likely you spent all of your money this year, right? So part of it is you've got to control the direction of where you want to put your money. Dave Ramsey always says, if you don't have a plan for your money, someone else does, right? They're going to come get it.
He also tells you not to spend any of it on anything.
He's got a really straight, for sure. Yeah. The next one is how much more do you need? How much more do you need? And do you know how much you need? How much more do you need, and do you know how much you need? Any thoughts on this before we move on? Do you guys know how much more you need? Yes? You guys know how much more you need?
Add 30% just over the inflation over last year. Whatever it was last year, add a 30%, because it's probably what it's gonna go.
Oh, like, again, one more thing Argentina gave me perspective on. When I went down 3 years ago, was the last time I was able to go down because of COVID. It was 30 Argentine pesos, and they have a pretty stable currency compared to a lot of other countries, but 30 pesos per dollar. So I swap a dollar, I get 30 pesos. Guess what it is now? Just 3 years, 36 months later. It's 110 pesos per dollar. Crazy, crazy. Like they literally have seen 300% inflation in the last 3 months. And again, had it not been for the US dollar being the staple global currency, we would be up and down like every other country. So 10 life questions. So even how much more do you need? I'm a big advocate of what Gary says. The purpose of wealth is to have the passive income such that it allows you to fulfill your life mission, right? So whatever your purpose in life is, having the passive income that allows you to live the lifestyle you desire to accomplish that life mission, that is what you will use the purpose of wealth for. So if your life mission only requires $30,000 a year, and you have $30,000 of passive income, great, you might have hit that, right? If it's $1 million a year, whatever that number is, so part of this is more the numerical, the money ones, but we're going to get into the life questions, which you can take this as deep as you want. But the first one is, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Could you define yourself in one word? You had to describe who you are in one word, one descriptive word, what would it be? I told this story yesterday, but we were at the mastermind just barely a month ago when we were going through these questions. And one of the agents was telling a story about when he was at a funeral. They went to the cemetery with his daughter. So it was the dad and the 4-year-old daughter at the cemetery. And if you've been to a gravestone or a cemetery lately, a lot of times the gravestone on the back of them will have like some sort of description of who they are, like husband, father, uncle. Even Gary Keller says that he's gonna have realtor, print on his gravestone because he believes in what we do so much. And the little 4-year-old girl was asking the dad, like, what do these words mean? Why do they put them on there? And the dad was trying to explain, well, this is usually how the people that loved them most described who that individual was in a couple words. And they saw father and husband and, mentor or whatever. And the little girl said to the dad, like, oh, Dad, you should put a cell phone on your gravestone. And it was just like a very sobering pause that the husband had to stop. Like, man, like my daughter thinks that my cell phone is the most important thing in life, So just if you were to, pass away right now and you have your people closest to you describing who you are, like, what would they say, So who are you? Number one question. Number two is, what do you believe? Maybe what do you believe in? What do you believe? What do you believe in? A lot of times, the more you figure out who you are, that probably dictates a little bit of what your belief system is, right? The next one is, what motivates you? What motivates you? Are you truly motivated by getting the next listing? Deep down, is that your motivation? What gets you up in the morning? What is the driving force behind you? What truly motivates you? Number 4 is, why do you work so hard? Why do you work so hard? Do you work for money? Do you think that you work for money? Gary Keller went through like a really spiritual journey in his late 20s. A lot of who he became, like, it was a fundamental time for him that he had a bunch of stuff happen that he truly realized that he was a spiritual person living physical experiences versus a physical being living spiritual experiences. And he went through a lot of different things at that point. And part of that for him is it was the same time that he authentically transitioned from being motivated for money to being motivated by something bigger. Like, he does not work for money. Like, I think the guy's got enough money to be okay, right? But clearly he's got such a motivation of what he's doing and a driving force that goes well beyond money, right? And part of it is I can totally sense that. Like, the dude, it's not about money for him. It's about finishing what he started out to do or getting over this next hump or whatever. Like, oftentimes he's got a lot of his buddies that are in retirement that are calling him from the golf course, and he's like, oh, I'm just in another meeting, and he FaceTimed him in a meeting, so just why do you work so hard, right? What is driving you to work so hard? Bonnie Ware, have you ever read her book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying? Bonnie Ware was a hospice nurse. She was a hospice nurse for over 30 years of her career, that she basically was the nurse that was on the bedside of dying people. And one of the things that she liked to do, as she was getting to know them and helping them on their last days, weeks, or months of their life, is she would always talk to them about what regrets that they have in their life, right? And she basically compiled the most common regrets that dying people have, and she wrote a book about it. It's called The Top 5 Regrets of Dying. Yeah, it's a very sobering book, but it's also she wrote it as a motivational piece to help us live our life better. And some of those attributes was one of the top ones was, I wish I had the courage to live a life for myself versus others making me live a certain life, right? Another one was I wish I would have stayed more in contact with my friends, right? But one of the big ones was, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. It was one of those top 5 regrets. So part of that is, why do you work so hard? Number 5 is, when is enough enough? When is enough enough? Or is there such a thing for you? Happiness happens on the way to fulfillment, right? The research says happiness happens on the way or the journey to fulfillment. So what is your fulfillment? What is your big end fulfillment? That is the journey that you're putting yourself on. When is enough enough? What do you need control over? It's number 6. What do you need control over? What is it that you seek to control in your life or do? Or what is it that you require control over to have the life you want to live? If you look back this whole last year, you're not 100% authentically happy about every area of your life. Why is that? What do you need to seek control over to gain the life that you desire? Desire, is it health, is it relationship? What is it that you need control over? Number 7 is, what do you fear? What do you fear? And what are you afraid of? What do you fear? What are you afraid of? Can you admit it? Can you admit what you're afraid of? Do you know? Is it fear of being a failure? Fear of having really not lived? Maybe you consider yourself fearless. What do you fear? What are you afraid of? As I've even been self-reflective about this question, and I analyze, even any potential negative emotion that I've dealt with over the last 12 months, whether it's sadness, anger, anxiety, stress, whatever. When I really think through them, I think most, or if not all, of my negative emotions are probably rooted in coming from some sort of place of fear. I'm stressed about something, or anxiety, like some sort of consequence is coming that I'm fearful. So I'm trying to even identify what is those things. Even like I mentioned, my childhood, right? Like so much of my motivation about wealth and getting, building the family legacy and an empire and stuff, is my motivation really is about motivation towards the fulfillment of that, or am I moving away from the fear of not wanting to be like that, right? So even a lot of goals I have, I ask myself, is it about getting closer to that, or is it about moving away from something? So some of my biggest fears is me not wanting to be like my childhood, or giving my children that childhood, or something. So like, what could you be afraid of, or what are you afraid of? Maybe how do you handle that fear? The next one is, what regrets are you trying to avoid? Death is inevitable, but regrets are not. So what regrets are you trying to avoid? This could be potentially a moving target, but what regrets are you trying to avoid this year, next year? Number 9 is, what's the meaning of your life? What's the meaning of your life? And number 10, who are you at the end of all this? What does it look like? Go to the end of your life, the choices you made, people you're around, and look at your life and who are you? Who are you at the end of all this? I've gone through this a handful of times with different leadership teams, and sadly, coincidentally, my wife's grandpa, who was like a dad to her, passed away a week and a half ago. So we just barely went to his funeral last Saturday, and I didn't know that well because we've only been married, a couple of years, but he really was like this patriarch of the family. Like everybody loved grandpa, right? And part of it is it's weird to describe a funeral like this, but it was like such a good funeral. Like all of the family that talked, and just the way they portrayed it and the stories they told, it was like a funny, happy, peaceful, type of scenario. But this question just keep popping in my mind. What are people going to say about me at my funeral? If I died right now, who's going to talk? What are they going to say? And I just start thinking about it, and it just fast forward to the end of your life, the choices you made, everything you did, like, who are you at the end of all this, right? And I think, you know, timely is just us being around Christmas time too. You know, one of the best stories about this is the Christmas Carol, you know, with Scrooge McDuck, right? That's the version I watch, it's the McDuck version. But just clearly he hated Christmas, right? He hated Christmas, he hated people, he was such a money hungry, greedy kind of guy, right? And right at Christmas time, he had a vision, right? He had 3 people visit him, which were basically just different forms of him in the future that were fast forward and taking him into his future life and showing him if he stays on this path, what his life's gonna look like, right? Nobody's gonna show up to his funeral, he has no friends, like the pain that he's causing others, you know? And bam, he wakes up and just that one, you know, spiritual dream experience that he had just totally changed his life. And he's going around, skip around, giving turkeys and coins or whatever out, right? So just fast forward your life and think about it, you know, and maybe there's something that you need to think about changing now that's going to help you have a more positive experience at the end of all this, right? Cool. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think mostly just wrote that down, but I just take 30 minutes and just answer it. Just try to put some answers on it. And then I think this is absolutely a habit of mine that I want every year. At the end of the year, just bring true purpose. Like there's been so many years of mine, the last 15, that I just kind of just coast into the next year, right? I just kind of roll in just with my normal ambition, whatever. But I just, even an example of Darius is just, he truly just tries to just center his entire why, his purpose, who he is, what his belief system is, you know, what he's fearful of. And just make sure his heart is showing up at the highest level as he progresses into the great year. So, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Johnny.